Welcome to the June 21st, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. At this time, I would request that everyone turn off or mute your cell phones and then stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Applications for rezoning and conditional use permits heard during tonight's meeting will be voted on by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendations on the applications will then be submitted to St. Charles County Council for their final decision on the items. The individual items and bills for these applications are scheduled to be introduced at the Monday, July 10th, 2017 County Council meeting. Applications for preliminary plats heard during tonight's meeting will also be voted on by the Planning and Zoning Commission during the meeting. The vote on preliminary plats is final. Only a recommendation for denial of a preliminary plat will be heard before the County Council. The following documents are introduced as a matter of record for the public hearing and regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission: the Unified Development Ordinance of St. Charles County, including zoning maps; the year 2025 Master Plan for St. Charles County, which includes the year 2025 Future Land Use Plan map. Got a motion to open the meeting, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we need to take something on the agenda. We need to take conditional use permit request CUP 1705 off the table, so I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of explain to you guys how the meeting works, and I see there's a lot of people in the room. So what we do is we read the application into the record. We then ask staff for recommendations. The commission then has an opportunity to ask questions of the staff too on the recommendations. At that time, we close that portion of it. We bring the applicant up for that. He has an opportunity to present his application to us. We have opportunities to ask questions of him also. After we close that portion, we open it up to the public. Each one of these agenda items, there's several of them on there, you have a chance to talk on, for or against on each item on this, on our applications. We then have a chance to ask questions of you. There's a lot of people in here, so I want you to know, I'm going to try to keep you guys at 3 minutes for your comments. The other thing you need to know, if it's the same thing over and over and over, I'm going to cut you off and have, because we want to hear everything that's new. So if it's similar items, please just be aware that we need to get to everybody, but we also want to have the meeting kind of move along. After we've opened that public up and then they've done their portion of it, we close it. We then bring the applicant back up. He has an opportunity to address any questions and concerns. We also get a chance to talk to him about those concerns. We then close the meeting. We bring it back before this commission. They have a chance to discuss it amongst themselves while you guys watch. If there's no discussion on it, or if there is, we have a chance to ask staff more questions, ask the applicant more questions if we need to. We then close that portion and ask for a vote. We do a motion and a second, and then we ask for a vote on those items. Regardless of what the outcome is of these items, you have a chance, except on the preliminary plats for tonight, to go to the county council meeting on July 10th. So you need to keep that in mind. July 10th, regardless how these are voted, up or down, they go to the county council. They can override our vote, whether it's denied or approved. So you need to go to those meetings too, and those get 2 readings at the county council. And the next meeting is on July the 10th, so you want to write those down. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I want to bring up that first agenda item, please. We have a rezoning request on Hancock Road. It's RZ 1706. The owners are B. Michael McMenemy and Candy R. McMenemy Investment Trust. The applicant is Stephen Bates. The current zoning is A, Agricultural District. The requested zoning is RR Single Family Residential District, 3-acre minimum lot size. The area is 43 acres. Its location is on the north side of Hancock Road, approximately 1,400 feet north of Mexico Road. It's in Council District 1. Just hold on a second. Staff?
Staff has reviewed this rezoning request in regard to rezoning from A to RR. As you know, Agricultural District is a 5-acre minimum lot size with RR, a 3-acre minimum lot size. The applicant is intending to develop a subdivision in the lot, in this parcel, on this parcel. When staff reviewed this, we looked at the increase in the number of lots, and it would be, basically be an increase from about 7 or 8 to actually, the proposal is 11 lots with an RR rezoning. That, of course, is not the issue tonight, it's the rezoning itself. Could we switch over to the PowerPoint? This parcel is located, if you look at the land use plan, it's kind of hard to see the black outline around there, but it is on the eastern edge of the planned industrial area, the joint land use plan between city and counties. This is, however, it does still have some low-density residential on the eastern portion of the property, and it is located at the extreme eastern edge of this planned industrial area. There also are no services to the parcel. There's no sewer, water, so they would be on septic system and private wells on the parcel. I don't really have a map showing you to the south of Hancock Road. It's a little bit more highly developed. I guess back on if you look here, there's to the south side of Hancock, there's a low-density growth. That's 1 to 4 units per acre. This rezoning would, in fact, probably wind up being a transition area between the agricultural zoning that you see still to the west and north, and even the eastern edge of this parcel. It'd be a transition area from the higher density residential south of Hancock Road to the northern portion, agricultural area. With that, staff does recommend approval of this rezoning request. We did have 2 letters of comment. One was from Gary Marshall and one from the city of Wentzville.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring the applicant up. Yeah. Want to raise your right hand for me, please?
Yes.
You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Stephen Bates, 2014 Chapel Hill Crossing, St. Peters, Missouri.
Thanks, Stephen. Go ahead.
All right. This first survey of the property, the McMenamies purchased this property in August 2015. Initially, they had looked at just putting on selling 2 lots and keeping, I believe it's like 32 acres for themselves. Last fall, and with age continuing with Mr. McMenamy, after clearing his 4 acres, he decided he no longer wanted 30 acres to maintain. That's where we've changed design. There is an actual There is a 12-lot plan out there, but once the county gave us input concerning the road right-of-way, it was reduced down to 11. We range from 5.1 acres to 3 acres. We consider it very low impact in the area. It is currently all farm ground or woods around it. With the aerial view, you can see that we've gone to great lengths to try and preserve as many trees as possible. Even where we do cut through the trees in the one area, there's an old farm road to where just, only a small number of trees are going to have to be removed. We did submit application for preliminary plat with the 11 lots. I'm open for questions.
Any questions?
So you're going to have septic for each individual home?
That is correct. The septic and well for each home.
One well servicing each property, or?
One per home or lot.
Gary Marshall's letter, did you have an opportunity to read that, some of his concerns?
No, I did not read. I've never seen the letter. I said hi to Gary when I came in here, explained that utilities that I did look into the possibility of getting water or even possibly sewer. It's not realistic. We're not adjacent to the city of Wentzville for annexation. It would take cooperation from neighbors to be able to run the line in, so we stayed with the well and septic. Now, we were looking at putting future easements across this property to benefit the Marshall property as it develops in the future. I really don't see it being developed industrially. There's an awful lot of land on Highway A not being utilized.
One of Gary's concern was the erosion, periodic flooding.
There is a fair amount of water that comes off of surrounding farm fields. I mean, we haven't had excessive erosion on our property. There's still the great big trees right along the creek and so forth. A 3-acre development is going to have limited runoff compared to what it could be.
Thank you.
How wide is is that an easement or a road going?
It's actually part of the property, and it's 50-foot wide.
50-foot wide. Okay. Any other questions, Stephen? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and open it up to the public. If there's anybody in the room that wants to speak on this matter, this is the time to come up and do it. And if you do speak on it, for or against, make sure you fill out a speaker's card too, and make sure we get you on the record. Does anybody want to come up? Raise your right hand for me. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record?
Gary Marischal, 540 Timber Ridge Drive, St. Peters, Missouri.
Thanks. Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, so wrote the letter that you were referring to, so I'm going to actually read from this because I'm better reading than talking ad lib.
Sure.
I'm the manager of Marischal Family Farms. Our property adjoins the McMenemy property on both their west and south property lines. As a family, we decided to oppose the rezoning request for the McMenemy project for the following reasons. And again, kind of getting back to what was mentioned already. First, a portion of our land lies directly downhill from their southern property line. Actually, it might be their eastern property line, I guess. No, southern. Through our property, we have a tremendous flow of water through a number of ravines and dry creeks. Each time there's a heavy rain, there's substantial flowage causing some erosion issues. A concern that we have is that the additional impervious surfaces from roads, driveways, roofs, et cetera, will cause additional runoff, and this will only be exacerbated by permitting even more homes on 3-acre lots. We do not note any type of planned water control on the rudimentary plan that we have seen, and we see that as a problem. Okay. 2, these homes will have both wells and septic systems. We believe concentration of even more septic systems by rezoning this ground is cause for alarm in the event one or more fail at any given time, and we suffer the runoff from that. We would feel much more comfortable with a centralized septic system for the future owners of these lots, since it could be more readily monitored and remedied in the event of problems, especially in light of the wells that are used as the water source in that area. Okay. Those are our major objections to the rezoning itself. I do have a couple general comments relative to the property, whether rezoning occurs or not, just in general. Okay, hunting does occur on our property. Although hunters on our property are extremely safe in their pursuit, we would all feel much better if a substantial fence were erected by the McMenemys to ensure lot purchasers, et cetera, don't errantly trespass and unknowingly endanger themselves during hunting season. Okay. We also wish to continue our farming operation in unincorporated St. Charles County as long as possible. Eventually, we realize that it will no longer be feasible and will more than likely sell the ground and repurchase elsewhere. We want to make it extremely clear that we do not favor annexation for our land, nor will we permit easements of any type through our land that could interfere with whatever future plans we develop for the land and potential land value. And that's it.
Okay. Any questions for Gary? None? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the room who wants to speak on this matter? Come on up. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
Daniel Marischal, 517 Hancock Road, Wentzville, Missouri.
Go ahead, Daniel.
So,
Go ahead, Daniel.
just giving some brief background, I've spoken with Mr. Bates, and, you know, I'm just one small resident that's nearby, and had bought property from the family. You know, like my father had said, eventually, you know, farming operations out there are going to come to an end. But with that being said, you know, I do disagree, and I've previously voiced some concerns to Mr. Bates. And my main concern also is erosion and runoff. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. I've been working in the past 10 years professionally licensed in the state. I do mixed-use developments for Montana, Boeing, I mean, lots of different commercial and industrial clients. And it's not uncommon that when you're doing a site development, you need to look at the impacts of stormwater mitigation. And I do run those calculations for retention basins. And just, you know, using some general estimates, assuming that a roadway is paved that's a minimum of 24 feet wide, you've got approximately 3,200 linear feet of roadway that would be impervious, as my father had stated. Assuming that you have lots that are, you know, 3 acres and you're putting a house on it, it's a decent sized lot, you're probably going to be building a house that's between 2,000 and 2,500 square feet, not including any garages and not including any pitches on roofs, not including any impervious surface for driveways, outbuildings, sheds, detached garages, patios, anything like that. We are looking at a neighborhood of about an additional 5 million gallons of water annually, from about 22 million to about 27.5 million. And again, these are conservative underestimates on what would actually be impacted in the creek. You know, as previously stated, the creek itself, and this is where some of my immediate concern comes from, it does gain water from adjoining properties, but a small portion of that creek does exist through the subject property that they're applying for the rezoning. The creek's been cut, and it's about 12 foot deep in areas. On our property, and I know on theirs as well, they've had to install some culvert pipes just to make development feasible. And I just want to, you know, make it known that, again, in that area, I mean, there have been $40 million invested in the past year in logistics centers off Highway A. There have been more than $45 million worth of tenant improvements in local manufacturing plants that I've been part of that, you know, to keep a local manufacturer in the municipality, in the county itself. And also, you know, the city itself has invested almost $6 million worth of infrastructure improvements in the said area for infrastructure, for, you know, other development opportunities. So with that being said, you know, the combined septic system, you know, people need to have septic systems. You need to have storage of waste in some way. However, you know, as the staff had recommended, south of the subject property, there is high-density developments in terms of multi-tenant housing or you know, subdivisions itself. The subject creek that we're talking about not only passes through my lot, where, you know, my family resides, it passes behind some buildings that I own, and it also passes behind several of my neighbors' lots and behind these subdivisions. And it all goes down creek. So that's an immediate concern.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Daniel?
Yeah, I do. Dan, what would be the size retention pond that would be needed to, I guess, create a no difference type of flow situation? I
hadn't run that calc. I mean, you know, because it depends dependent on lot size. I mean, you know, physical area and depth. There's a lot of different factors that would.
Right. I mean, but okay, so it's probably a certain number of cubic feet though that it would have to.
Correct. Yeah. So I mean, you know, it was roughly 5 million gallons was the net add, with underestimated, you know, without knowing actual plans or minimum house sizes or, you know, driveway requirements or anything that would eventually come in as part of the residential development. It's hard to pin that down, Councilman, but however, it is a concern that, like I said, once once that, I think there needs to be provisions made for it now, because if there's 12 lots or 10 lots or 11 lots and they're planning on being sold, it's not going to be done, down the road, and it's just going to come down the hill. And this is another concern where a family member of ours had a property actually off of Country Club Road near St. Charles City, and there's a creek that had flowed behind their house. Nothing had changed for years. New developments had come in, and their basement actually flooded and had to get vacated, and the city had to buy the house and redevelop it and eventually sell it from them. So it's just a concern that's not unfounded. Sure. It happens all the time in new subdivisions, new commercial properties, and it's well pronounced with MSD and other municipalities.
And Robert, that's usually addressed at preliminary plats, right? I mean, is there a water, do we do some of that stuff out there?
Correct.
Yeah.
If a preliminary plat could be submitted now as an agricultural zoning district, and it would be 5-acre minimum lots, and if this should pass, it would be minimum 3-acre lots. And either way, there would have to be calculations done on what runoff would be.
Right.
And if the differential is more than a certain threshold, they'd have to compensate by providing on-site detention.
Right.
So that would handle the volume of water. I always remind people there's always going to be more, I'm sorry, not the volume, but the rate of flow of water, but I always remind people with more roofs and with more streets, there's going to be, the total volume is going to be more, it's just going to run off a little bit slower. It tries to slow down the rate. That's what the detention ponds do.
Right.
Correct, and the main reason of the detention pond is basically to slow the volume of water down.
Right.
So that way you're not sending water at a very relatively low velocity. Water to your house will travel somewhere between 7 and 10 feet per second. And rainwater, just runoff water, normally is much slower than that on unpaved surface.
Right.
When you actually have established soil conditions, I'm not talking about tilled ground that's directly to the east. And our property, well, not my property, but my family's, joint family's property that's to the west, it is mainly in woods. But the property adjacent to the east, it does get actively farmed, and there is a 2,600 linear foot roadway that would potentially be adjacent to it. And when water hits that surface coming off concrete, it can be at roughly 2 feet per second.
Sure.
And that's easily enough. I mean, sometimes it even exceeds that. It can be near 3 feet per second.
Right.
And that'll erode established soils with
that's-
grass.
And Daniel, that's why I'm asking staff, because we do address those.
Okay.
I mean, we're not
Okay.
going to let people put in stuff and make it a real problem for the other one. It sounds like to me they could mitigate some of the problems you're having right now.
Correct.
Too,
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
they do
Yeah,
it
that's
right.
not, yeah. So, I mean, I just want them to go on record, though, that these are my concerns.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you.
Is there anybody else in the room who wants to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close the public portion, ask the applicant to come back up if he wants to address any other concerns. And most of it's water.
Both the consolidated sanitary, I'm not even sure what options there are as far as being able to do that. I'm under the impression in St. Charles County that the homes need to have their own individual system rather than consolidated. Not sure of that. I'll have to check with the county. Well, hello, Keith. And as far as the stormwater runoff, that will be addressed in the when we get further down the road with the record plat. 3-acre retaining all the woods or 90-something% of the woods and so forth. I consider the additional runoff to be pretty limited. The area that goes closest to Dan Marshall's house as far as there's a culvert pipe going across our 50-foot road. Well, 90-something% of that water doesn't come from our property. It comes from the farm to the east. Both the property to the east and the property to the north all drain towards the Marshall's property. And we have no control over that.
Any other questions for?
Do you, in your plat, do you have a provision for any kind of retention basin?
No, we haven't even gotten into the engineering portion of it. We actually just have that preliminary sketch is as far as we are. I think the application went in 2 or 3 days ago. So well, we haven't even gotten comment back from the county at all.
Who's going to develop the property?
Mr. and Mrs. McMenamy, they'll be the developer of record.
Primary contractor?
I'm sorry?
They'll be the primary contractor?
I believe so. I mean, we will be subbing it out. Canon has done a lot of work for us. We just aren't that far along. The zoning was the first process, and we're just starting to get a good feel for, what it is we want to do here.
Do you have building size limitations or sizes already as part of your plan?
We have some on other properties that the McMenamies are selling, but I do think we're going to increase it for this piece. These are premium lots with big mature trees. I'm thinking we're going to be in the 300 to 3,500 square foot range. The smallest we've gone on any of the farm ground, including just wide open cornfield, was 2,500. So,
Any other questions for Stephen? Seeing none, thank you.
there you go.
Bring it back before the commission. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Can I get a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
Mr. Griffin? Can I get a second, please? Second. Mr. McDonald? Thank you for the second. Mr. Griffin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm votes yes. Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Klinghammer?
Yes.
That's 9-0. Thank you. Our next application is CUP 1706, a conditional use permit. The owners and applicants are Edward and Tammy Barrio. I guess that's how it's said. Use requested is rural recreational activity and a facility for weddings and wedding receptions. Property zoning AFF Agricultural District with a floodway fringe overlay district. The area is 20.67 acres. The location is on the west side of Dietrich Road, approximately 600 feet north of Wild Horse Drive, and it's in Council District 1. Staff?
All right, can we switch over to the PowerPoint? On this request, first I want to also bring up County Council recently passed an ordinance update to the UDO. One of those is their conditional use permit under the agricultural zoning. One is rural recreational activity, and the second one is a facility for weddings, wedding receptions, and other public gatherings. With that, you're going to see 3 applications coming up here in this meeting. The first one, like you said, is on Dietrich Road. This applicant currently does have some rural recreational activities that they occupy and use primarily in the spring and the fall months of the year, with school children coming and families coming on weekends. With that, they'd also like to add the wedding facility and outdoor weddings as part of the rural recreational activity. The wedding receptions, however, would be indoors, and that would be the facility that they're requesting. The applicant has proposed some additional conditions, which we have placed in our recommendation. We did look at the zoning in the area is a quiet, rural agricultural area, and we do want to make sure that that stays that way and that it's not enhanced in a commercial manner. The other issue that we did address was site distance to the nearest residence. We did look at the border. There's a lot of trees to the south. The neighbor directly to the north, there's not a tree line there. However, most of these activities will be, I believe it was 300 feet away from the nearest residence. The applicant also, in their facility, will be limited, not so much by, well, they did propose that they will limit the number of people that will be there, but also, I believe they are on well also, so they will not be able to do a sprinkler system. Therefore, the number of people that would be allowed in their facility would be under 100, number 100. So with that, we did recommend approval of this conditional use permit. The first, with conditions. The first is that a site plan be submitted that is in substantial compliance with the concept plan they submitted. The second is that wedding receptions will only be offered during the months of April, May, June, September, October, and November on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, with no more than 30 wedding receptions per calendar year. The end time would be 12 p.m., and any other events will end no later than 10 p.m. on weekends and 9 p.m. on weekdays. Number 3, no conditional use shall be active until all conditions of the approval have been met. And number 4, in any case where a conditional use is not in place and in active use within 2 years from the date of granting and/or in accordance with the terms of the conditional use originally granted or subsequently amended, then without further action by the Planning and Zoning Commission and/or the County Council, the conditional use or authorization thereof shall be null and void. Staff did receive 4 letters in regard to this application. 1 was a comment letter and 3 letters of support.
Any questions for staff?
Yes. Ellie, under your analysis, where you have the application has proposed a parking lot that can accommodate up to 60 parking places, will require 3 spaces for disabled. Commercial ingress and egress and parking lots will be required to be paved. And I can see from the pictures, it's all gravel now, which will require the applicant to submit a formal request for the Planning and Zoning Director prior to the formal site in order for the gravel surface to be approved. Is that, where are you looking at this? Is it going to remain gravel, or what portion of the layout is going to be required to have paved surfaces?
Well, under the ordinance, anytime a parcel is being developed in a quote-unquote commercial manner, it is required to be paved and brought up to standard. However, we do look at agricultural areas, review that. We're not stating that this is what they're going to do, but they would have the opportunity to address that request to Robert to leave it unpaved. But it would have to be dust-free surface.
Is that how you see it, Robert?
The code says basically almost everything has to be paved when it's new. But there's an opportunity through the site plan process for a request being made by the applicant for me to waive the paving if it's an alternative dust-free surface at least 6 inches thick. And it's so typically what we'll do, it's not unusual, I should say, in rural areas like this for people to apply for a waiver for the pavement. For instance, like the Keevan Brothers, their outdoor storage for RVs, that's been approved several times now with not having an asphalt surface. And so if I receive that application, you know, I would review it just like any other request like that. The one area I would say that does need to be paved is the handicap parking surface and the route of access from handicap parking to the facility. That's the part that comes to mind that does need to be paved.
Thank you.
Mr. Ellis?
I've got a question with recommendation number 2, the limit of the months and the number of receptions and the times of day. Who would enforce that?
Well, that would be up to the applicant to enforce it themselves. They actually proposed that condition be added to their application.
So they have 32 weddings, which means they didn't comply, then What's the ramifications?
Well, in terms of the number of receptions, I'm not sure they could, trying to think real quick if they could get that many in. I mean, this is what their application states that they would enforce themselves. If we did receive a complaint, that's when we would look into it and probably address the issue. But it would probably be complaint-driven at this point.
Following up on that, what remedies would be available to us, Keith?
Injunctions.
Yeah.
You're, you're not going to get fines and penalties out of
All right.
this situation.
Thank you.
What's nice about this recommended conditions is for specific months and days. So if we receive a call from a neighbor and it's in February, I'm making that up. It's probably not going to happen in February, an outdoor wedding, but if it's on February and it's on Monday, we know it's in violation. But when you add up the number of months here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months and 3 days out of each week. So you can pretty much figure out what's the maximum number they can do unless they're doing multiple weddings per day. But so I do like the fact that it's specific on the months and the days. That helps us enforcement. If we only said 30 a year, we'd have to have someone sitting out there in front of a vehicle counting. I mean, it's not going to happen, so.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, is the applicant in the room? Want to come up? Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
Edward Barrio, 149 Sumac Ridge Drive, Forestdale, Missouri.
Go ahead, Edward.
Okay, just to bring you up to speed, some of the background, we've been a pumpkin patch under a conditional use permit. We got our first conditional use permit in 2003, the summer of 2003. We opened up our pumpkin patch that fall. We updated our conditional use permit in 2005 to allow us to do more hours. The gravel parking lot has been there for 15 years, very well packed. It's not the chat, so it's no dust. In our plan, we plan on paving the 3 parking spots for the handicapped, and we will have the paved way up to the facility. We get a lot of compliments on our place. We want to keep it rural. We like the rural look. The facility that we built lately is a cedar barn. It really fits the area. We get a lot of compliments from our neighbors. It's been a pretty successful pumpkin patch. It's something that my wife and I have done on the side, hoping to someday retire early and have a little bit of income. I recently got tied up in a large layoff with the Boeing company, and so now this is my only income. So we contacted St. Charles County to see what it would take to do weddings, so that's what brings us here today.
Any questions?
I just have a side comment. First time I've ever seen anybody panning for gold in St. Charles County.
And you know what? It's funny, you would not believe how many people ask me if it's real gold.
It's not?
It is not for $5. No. But it's a very popular place. You can read my reviews online. Everybody loves it. The biggest compliment we have is we keep it so neat and so tidy.
How much you planned on spending on these changes?
Well, initially, not nearly as much as I thought. It is quite expensive to become compliant. I've already worked with the fire department, and they've given me everything I need to do. I've got the exit doors. Everything's in place, and I don't really want to tell you in public how much it costs, but it's a lot.
You're investing a lot of money.
Sure. It's do or die for me.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Any other questions for Edward? Seeing none, thank you, Edward.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and open up the public. If there's anybody in the room that wants to speak on this matter, they can come forward now, for or against.
Hello.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
Kathy Walsh, 150 Sumac Ridge Drive in Forestdale, Missouri.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kathy.
All right, we're next door neighbors of the applicants, And we have no issue with the outdoor activities at Valley Farms other than the big celebrations like weddings. Weddings usually involve a large number of people, alcohol consumption, and possibly loud music for several hours. There was a large party at Valley Farms last year, and we heard nonstop noise for at least 6 hours. I believe topography is the problem. Our land and that of Incline Village on the other side rise high above Valley Farms, and this results in a canyon effect in terms of acoustics. We moved into our new home last year. It's on a cliff, high above a lake and across a golf course. There's occasional noise during the warmer months, but the noise is brief and fleeting, and this is very different from the prolonged and continuous noise of a wedding party. We're worried about the potential for 30 weddings a year because this would surely impact the peaceful enjoyment of our property. As for the future, I'm concerned that the boisterous noise of so many weddings will affect the resale value of our home. I understand that Valley Farms wants to run a good business, but I believe that some of their profits would come at the expense of many of the residents of this quiet rural area. We want to be reasonable. We're not suggesting that Valley Farms not be allowed to host weddings, but we're asking that you please consider decreasing the number of weddings to a maximum of 10 per year instead of 30. Thank you.
Any questions for Kathy? Thank you, Kathy.
Right, thank you.
Is there anybody else in the room who wants to speak on this matter? Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
Paula Weeks, 1128 Dietrich. So I'm across from the pumpkin patch. It's a beautiful place. The new barn is just gorgeous. We have a barn on our property, and we've had numerous people ask to have weddings at our place, but we're not set up for that. I think there's a need in St. Charles County for people are wanting to have the outdoor weddings. We're catty corner across, and I've never had a problem with the noise. It's a beautiful place. The barn is beautiful. He should have brought a picture of it, but we've always enjoyed the pumpkin patch, you know, seeing the people play, and I've never seen anything get out of control, and never a problem with traffic or anything like that.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else in the room? Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
I'm Daniel A. Pressman. I'm the husband of Kathy, who just spoke. And I, like her, I still do live at 150 Sumac Ridge Drive.
And you're not sitting together?
We were. There was a period when we didn't live together, but that's a different story.
I understand.
4 years ago, we saw this lot, and I'd had Kathy living with me in the East for 30 years. She's wanted to come back to her family. You guys may know it if you play golf. It's above, you know, the cliff on the far side of Incline Village Lake. We bought the land on top of the cliff. We loved the views, the waterfall, the creek going down the canyon, the peace and the quiet. We knew that there'd be sounds of summer. We knew there's going to be noise out on the lake, and we were prepared for that. We do live in the same subdivision as the Barrios. In fact, they're our next-door neighbors. And we have a direct line of sight to Valley Farms. Not at this time of the year, but our property is 550 feet from the Valley Farms parcel itself, and our home is actually 750 feet away. And it might be helpful if you could look at the map. Our house there is 150. Their house is at 155 and 149. Then there's the Valley Farms property, and then above that there's what I call the triangle property. And that all the two properties, 155 and 149, the triangle and Valley Farms, are all owned by the Barrios. And that'll be important in a minute. My brother is an attorney here in St. Louis. I moved here anyway. Researched the subdivision, the zoning around the properties, and there were no red flags. Valley Farms was noted, but it seemed innocuous enough. They were offering, hay rides and kids' attractions. Certainly, I didn't see any permits for any big events, or he didn't. And when I first met Ed Barrio, he actually described Valley Farms to me as a hobby farm, stating, quote, "I do just enough to use it as a tax deduction." We bought this land at a pretty hefty premium because of the views. We designed to build a house and moved in 18 months ago. About a month ago, we learned about Mr. Barrio's retirement and his plan to run Valley Farms as a full-time business. During the time we've lived there, there have been a few events at Valley Farms, and I certainly don't begrudge them the occasional noisy event. In fact, the noise ended at reasonable times. But now we're no longer talking about the occasional event. This is our retirement home. I, too, am retiring, and I want to enjoy it. To fully understand the issue, as my wife said, you have to understand the topography. And if you could bring up the topo layer on that, on the GIS thing.
Oh.
If you go to layers, I don't know. They can get
It's okay.
It's, again, we've got a cliff. I mean, it's a cliff. And it's pretty straight down on the creek side. And on the far side, the land, the sound just echoes around in there. And we even know that our neighbors across the lake can actually hear the events that happen there, including their dogs barking. Now, we've had Mr. Barrow may be upset with me because we've made a complaint earlier this year about his dogs that bark all night, that used to run, and that's not the issue today, but that's an example. They used to roam the entire area, in his words, patrolling the pumpkin patch and keeping beavers off the creek. And apparently these dogs are trained to bark. I don't really know what kind they are. Since the complaint, Mr. Barrio states that he's been keeping the dogs in what they call the paddock, which is in more of the central area of the, there they are, the central area of the, GIS maps are great, by the way. Whoever did this for St. Charles, where their building facilities are. So the dogs are now being kept where their wedding facilities will be, approximately. Between the leaves, air conditioning.
Daniel, can you kind of,
Yep.
we kind of know what you guys noise problems.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
They've operated for many years without permits that I've been able to find. As I say, I don't begrudge them 1 or 2 events. I'm not talking about full-time. In addition, there's no restriction on the number and size of non-wedding events, suppose it was a reunion. Most importantly to me, the application indicates the activity will be limited to the Valley Farms parcel itself, not the triangle. However, in the past, their website has included wedding venues that are obvious, that have a view of the waterfall and of the creek and are obviously taken from on the triangle. Their Facebook page still includes pictures that are taken from on the triangle. We've observed guests coming down during the weddings to the creek, bringing boom boxes, taking pictures, etc., at the foot of, and that's at the foot of our property. I'm almost done. As a result, I question whether their intent really is to restrict activity to that parcel as defined by the CUP. Earlier this year, gravel was brought in and grading was done near the foot of their property approaching the creek. And and they also graded a circular area. It just appears to be in support of commercial activities. It turns out it looks like it's partially on Incline Village land also.
So Daniel, you're going twice
yep.
as long? Is there anybody else? We need to try to wrap it up, please.
Given the proximity, including our own, I question whether a commercial facility of this type belongs here. The well-established tree line's obviously not a barrier. The applicants have ignored permit requirements for years. They failed to get permits for the grading, including work done in the floodplain. They built on land they're not. We'd like to request that this be denied, but in order to be reasonable, we would instead request that the wedding receptions be limited to 10 per year. 30 per year during 6 months means every single weekend, right? Public events of any kind, wedding or not, should be limited to 2 per month on the weekends and maybe 2 per month during the week. That seems reasonable. The applicants must confirm there'll be no activity on the Triangle property and that no future requests to this commission for expansion onto that property, which they already own, would happen, because that will be a major event. I mean, they've obviously spent money now.
So Daniel, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off. I want to get the applicant up to answer some of these questions
Fine.
and concerns. Yeah.
And finally, fencing and signage should be erected to prevent them leaving the
Hold on,
parcel.
don't leave. Let's see if there's any
Sorry.
questions. You guys have any questions for Daniel? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I apologize I didn't send
That's
a
okay.
letter.
It's all right. Is there anybody else in the room that wants to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public portion of it and bring the applicant back up. So obviously you have a noise issue for at least one of your residents or nearby. Can you address any of those?
I'll try my best. I do want to open by saying, I don't know what the penalty is for lying under oath, but there was several lies there.
Well,
I have permits for everything.
I don't want to go into that.
I understand. I have permits for everything that I do.
Okay.
There was never a 6-hour party. I've never booked a 6-hour party.
So what can you do about the noise?
It's indoors, and there will be no outdoor music at all after what's reasonable, 8 o'clock. No, there will be no outdoor music, no outdoor noise. And that is my land that I own. I own all of it. I've already made the concession to try to appease this, that I no longer have any wedding receptions, or I'm sorry, I was going to have wedding ceremonies by the creek. It's all on my property. He called and complained to Incline Village that said I was building on his property and I was building on Incline Village property. Okay. They came out and they did a survey, and as I knew, because the old survey stakes were still there, I'm a good 15 feet away, and there was nothing down there but landscaping. I've removed that from my webpage. You can look at my webpage right now. It's nothing on there. That's off the main piece of property. I can't imagine there being any noise. We have other neighbors in that valley that have live bands all the time. We have a gentleman across the street. He was the one who sent in one of the letters of support. He has a band. They practice every weekend. I hear it at my house. I'm sure everybody else hears it. Nobody has ever complained. I've never complained. I have been on that piece of property that the complainant owns. Before they bought it, we actually looked at buying it. There is no way any time of year you can see my facility or my pumpkin patch or anything. You just can't.
Okay. So your facility is going to be inside?
The receptions are going to be inside, sir.
Okay. Any other questions for Edward?
Yes. I've heard a lot about the barn. Apparently, it's very nice. Can you give us a sense of how large of a event, whether it be a wedding or a reunion, what is the maximum size that you could accommodate?
Well, I believe we'll have that discussion with planning and zoning. Whatever they say is going to be my limit.
Well, it says in the UDO, change it 100 is.
Right, and that's, I talked to...
Because of the sprinkler system stuff? Or they have this
Well, I
problem?
think there was some confusion there. It's a A3, not a A2, and I talked to Jared. He had mentioned, Robert, that he was going to talk to you folks. They said under 5,000 square feet and up to 300 people for a A3 without a sprinkler system. So he said he was going to get with you on that. But I have it 200 people max for a wedding is my plan.
Are you willing to make that one of the conditions of the approval?
As long as we have some leeway where if it's 201 people, or including staff, I'd be happy to sign up to 250 people. And again, it's all indoors.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close it and bring it back before this commission. Any comments, questions of staff or concerns or?
Yeah, Ally, when you were talking about that, Max, in your analysis, 100 guests without a sprinkler system. So what Edward had, where do we get the 250? What is he doing? How is that working out? because it wasn't in your original analysis.
Right. What we did was, we did actually have what we call a one-stop visit, where all of our divisions in community development and the public health department and the highway department all gather on site to address any issues that may come up. I apologize. It was my understanding that that Jared had classified that as an A3, which requires a sprinkler system with 100 people or more. I am not a building code specialist, but I would suspect it may have to do with maybe not having a full kitchen. I don't know if you know anything about that, Robert.
Basically, there's building code and fire code requirements that dictate what the maximum occupancy can be in a building without sprinklers. And in this case, as I understand it, it's 99 people without sprinklers. But that's inside a building. I guess conceivably you could have a larger gathering outdoors, but the indoor portion could only be 99.
So that's what we're voting on? 99?
And he said all of his activities were going to be within the
Inside.
building.
Yeah, we did, if you read the proposed conditions, I don't think we,
No,
It's not one of the
correct.
conditions,
It's not
but
in
if
the
you read the,
conditions.
yeah, we don't limit it to 99. That's just a building code requirement.
right.
Because, let's just say that should this be approved, and it's successful enough that at some point he wants to go back in and invest in the building and have it meet fire code requirements for more people. The conditions, we didn't limit it to, we're not proposing to limit to 99 in the conditions. It's just a separate fire code requirement.
And it is what I did understand, and speaking with Jared, was that it's very difficult for a sprinkler system when you're on a well system.
So he can't have a 250
I
person,
I cannot answer that.
who can?
Probably none of us, but
Okay.
it's,
It's going to come up when he does his
yeah.
other portion of the application.
When he goes to deal with the building code
Yeah.
issues,
Okay.
I hope he's not financially disappointed.
Yeah.
I guess then the question is, do we want to, if we're concerned about the noise, if we put it as one of the conditions, what he has told us that it's going to be indoor.
Yeah.
Then I think that takes care of, between that and the building code, will take care of whatever that maximum number ends up being. And I think that addresses some of the issues of outdoor parties can be more intrusive in the neighborhood than indoor parties. So I guess I'll float it out there and say, make a motion to add another condition that the events be held within the structure itself, indoor parties.
I second that.
Sort it then.
So I have a question. Recommendation number 2 specifies wedding receptions. Your recommendation number 5, you use the term events, and that could be construed
Yeah.
differently.
Correct. I think the number 2 deals strictly with the wedding receptions, puts a limit on that particular activity. And then number 5 deals with the more expansive other activities they already have going on, the hay rides and so forth.
Yeah, but you can't put those under a roof.
Right.
So I see what you're saying, though. It should be wedding.
I understand that.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is our class reunion for high school ended up being a rather loud affair. And, it was fun.
What was that, 10 years?
Yeah, I think it was the 10-year one. That's what I'm thinking of. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at is that type of event, whether we call it a wedding or a party. So maybe the more generic term would just be to call it a party. Would be in.
Events is fine, because the last sentence of number 2 says, any other events will end no later than 10 p.m. on weekends and 9 p.m. on weekdays. So that would apply to not, to this number 5?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Commissioner, I'm not seeing number 5.
Number 5 was my
We're going to make
proposal.
that, we're going to add that.
Oh,
That's what we're
okay,
adding.
okay, yeah.
Ellie?
Ellie, there was a definition.
Yeah, I think I need to clarify. Council added 2 additional conditional uses under the agricultural zoning.
Right.
The first one is the rural recreational activity, which would cover some of the things like his gold panning, anything like that.
It's basically
It also-
outdoors.
Outdoor activities strictly, and that includes weddings, the actual ceremony, not the reception. The facility is the second conditional use that they added, and that is strictly indoors. So it's not an outside party allowed.
Okay.
It's nothing like that. They may have an employee on site that shows them around, but basically it's a catered event, a do-it-yourself type of wedding situation where you have the reception indoors.
It's like Old Hickory does that. They have the events outside, the actual wedding ceremony outside.
I've been to some barn weddings though, where they actually open up the doors to the barn and tables are set out on the lawn as well as the dance floor and the one I went to, the dinner was served inside, but the party more or less spilled out onto the surrounding property.
So condition 5 then is that these events will be indoors.
Now, is that where you're gonna put the 250 or the code limit?
We're just going to say,
whichever's-
regardless what happens when it goes to, the county, when they say what they can do or not do, building.
Address the noise abatement.
Yeah, it just has to be indoors, whether it's 100 or 250 or whatever it ends up being, the size of the barn. Yeah. Go ahead,
Can I
Robert.
ask for clarification, please? When you say events, are you intending to mean both weddings and wedding receptions? The reason I ask that is,
The wedding ceremony, I don't think anybody has a problem with the ceremony itself being outdoors. It's
Yeah.
the party that
okay,
generally follows it.
I want to clarify that because the weddings themselves, right, outdoors are typically low-key and pretty quiet, but it's the receptions where you get more noise. Also, I would say there's a real phenomenon going on where people are just crazy right now about outdoor weddings, holding them in alternative places you might not necessarily think of. And if you limit it to indoor weddings only, I think that would take away from the market of what he's trying to fill.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
saying that.
Okay.
I do have a question on the condition 2, the last sentence. Any other events will end no later than 10 p.m. on weekends and 9 p.m. on weekdays. It's kind of a catch-all sentence. Is that still limiting it to those months? Or is that kind of a wide open that says whenever they want to have a meeting there or some kind of event, it can go on all year round? It's kind of a catch-all phrase. What does it really mean?
My reaction to it is that the weddings are limited in that first sentence and the second sentence, and the any other events is not related to the earlier
It's
two sentences.
whatever else can go on during the week or whatever.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Panning for gold.
Well, I hate to be persnickety about it here, but again, using my example of the class reunion,
Yeah.
can that happen in February,
It'd just be indoors.
but it would be indoors?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
I don't think it's going to end at 9 PM or 10 PM, I'll say that.
probably not.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we have it clarified as to what this motion is?
We're voting on number 5.
Yep.
Yeah.
The condition?
What are we really, we talked a lot.
Yep. But I think the condition 5 is that all the events that are held in that facility will be indoors. Weddings still can be outdoors. The ceremony can be performed outdoors, but the event itself afterwards is in the facility. If they're renting the facility, it has to be indoors. Can't move outside with it.
What if, instead of using the word events, why don't we consider saying the serving of food and drink must be indoors?
Okay,
And then you don't have the problem. The ceremony can be outside.
okay.
What about music?
Yeah, again,
You lose a lot of things.
I keep flipping back to my actual example. The food was indoors, but the party was outdoors, so,
Well, regardless of what we said.
well,
Yeah, but it's a violation, though, is the point. Keith, can you help us out on this at all? As far as, hate to put you on the hot spot on this, but.
I'm trying to recall, but there were some there was a second new definition that was recently adopted by the council. And if I could remember that phrase, that's what I'd recommend you use rather than the all events language. Because that plugs into what is actually, not all events are gonna be permitted under our recently adopted definition. So I hate to say it, but I'm having a tough time remembering what that was. Ellie, do you have the recent
It was
bill?
public gatherings, but I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
it was public something or another.
Yeah.
that's how I read it.
It was, what'd you say, Mike?
I thought it was events, but you pay closer attention to the details sometimes.
Yeah. So for the moment, I'm not sure what to do other than maybe go downstairs to my office and see if I can't find a copy of that bill and look up the exact phraseology.
Can we use the language to vote on this and just refer to the language that county council in their definition?
I'd like to know what that definition is before we put that in the definition. I'm sorry, do you have that as?
I believe I have.
Edward, do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Bring that up, would you please?
Yeah.
Are we saying if he's gonna have a 100-person wedding reception, he can't have it outside?
Right.
Okay.
Anything that's, he's renting, if someone's renting the facility, basically, it has to be indoors activity. They can't move outside with it. That's what we're saying.
Reception.
The reception itself, or an event, that
right.
graduations, any of those things, any parties.
And may I just?
Hold on, let's see what he's got.
Who's going to enforce this?
Well, again,
It'll be
that's one of those
complaint-driven.
things, complaint-driven, and I'm sure we're going to have some of that, and he's going to have to really be careful with it. And let's assume we vote this in, so, you know.
Thank you. I think I think we could say, instead of all events, all conditional uses as described in section 405.080 point C point, Arabic number 12.
That fully clarifies it.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be legal.
Okay.
But it isn't going to be as expansive as all
I gotcha.
conceivable events.
Okay.
I want to know what it was.
Okay, so now that doesn't limit the maze and the painting for gold, the petting zoo?
It doesn't what?
It doesn't limit the other outdoor activities, it won't limit those other.
No,
Right.
these,
We want to make sure we're not doing that. That's why I
Right.
wanted to know what it said.
Edward, you're good with, you understand what we're trying to accomplish here?
Yes, I just want to, I have a pavilion during the weekends, during the day.
Why don't you come up? Why don't you come up?
while he's doing that, let me just read so that everybody gets a sense of this. The definition that I'm seizing upon here says facilities with meeting rooms or places for conferences, meetings, weddings, and our wedding receptions or other public assemblies.
And I just wanted to clarify to avoid problems in the near future. I have a pavilion, it's an outdoor facility, it's a recreational area. We have kids' birthday parties in October. I am fine, willing, and ready and able and want to limit the noise for something reasonable, anything after 9 o'clock. The reason that I requested the ability to do non-wedding events outside, any time of year is because it's an expensive operation to run. I need income all year. And these are only intended for such things like the Humane Society comes to me every other year and they want to do a fundraiser out there. Those will be over at 9 o'clock on the weekends or weekdays.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee of that. So, I mean, you're running a business, you're going to try to fill those facilities. So we're trying to address that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and put those.
So are you saying you're going to have them outdoors, though?
Before, non-wedding events that end before 9 o'clock, and it's on my booking system.
Okay. And you're doing that now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. I just didn't want to run into problems.
It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So non-wedding event could be the cluster unit.
As long as it's certain, yes. Could it? Yeah. I mean, he's doing that now already anyway. So, okay, I think we've got that beaten up pretty good. And we do have a motion and a second. I'm going to ask that be amended to what was introduced by Keith.
Conditional uses in section 405.
I'll amend mine to include the definition as Mr. Hazelwood has read.
And Mr. Clear, I need a second on that too.
I second that.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. McBride, how do you vote on this?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm votes yes. Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Klinghammer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
That's 9-0 for that conditional use, or that condition. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and now we can discuss the merits of the application. If there's any additional questions on this to ask staff of. You guys have any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and get a motion from somebody, please.
So moved.
Mr. Ellis and
Second.
Mr. Klinghammer seconds. Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm votes yes. Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Klinghammer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
That's 9-0. That passes. Just so you know, again, July 10th, 2017, they'll be going before the county commission. You have an opportunity to do that, and it gets read twice, so there's 2 opportunities for that. Thank you. If you guys want to go ahead and you can leave now, you don't have to stick around since you've been approved. All right, let's move on to the next item. Could you, if you're going to leave, go ahead and do it now. Thank you. Our next item up is CUP 1708, conditional use permit request. Owners are G. Richard Coates and Sharon K. Coates, Revocable Living Trust. The application is Fall Creeks Weddings, LLC. Use requested: facility for weddings, wedding receptions, and other public assemblies, and rural recreational activity. Property zoning is A, agricultural district. The area is 13.7 acres, and the location is on the northwest corner of Highway 94 South and Hemsath Road, and it's in Council District 2. Staff?
All right, could we switch back to the maps? Okay, this application, similar to the previous application, it is located there on the northwest corner of Hemsath Road and Highway 94. This applicant is proposing in their concept plan to have a chapel with a size of 3,287 square feet and a maximum occupancy of 222 people, and also an event barn, which is proposed to be 6,623 square feet with a maximum occupancy load of 290 people. Staff did look at the property. The proposed access to this facility would be off of Hemsath Road, which should help alleviate concern about entering and exiting off of Highway 94. They would be required to update the concept plan with additional parking, but however, there is plenty of space on this parcel to to expand on that. Again, buffering is not required with this conditional use permit. However, there is a tree line to the north, to the east, and somewhat to the south. The applicant can speak more about the exact location where, if any, outdoor weddings would be held, but where the actual facility will be located and their ingress and egress. Again, staff is recommending approval on this application. The standard site plan requirement is the first condition. The second condition would be no more than 280 guests allowed. The third condition in this case would be no events shall be held between the hours of 12 a.m. and 8 a.m. Number 4, no conditional use shall be active until all conditions of the approval have been met. Number 5, again, if the conditional use is not in place within 2 years, it would be asked to be null and void. And this one has a 6th condition. Should the contract purchaser fail to complete the purchase of the property, any interest they may have in the conditional use permit is thereby extinguished. This application received 2 letters of opposition.
Thank you.
Can you use the pointer and point, because we've had some things in the past where Nobles Wine is located,
The winery is right here.
and the church,
The proposed
the existing Catholic church.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know where the church is.
But when we approved Nobles Wine, I remember Roger would,
I believe it was, I think it's down this way. Here, let me pull up the other map here.
is there a lot of church members against that? And I remember Roger, I said you could take a driver and hit it, and he said I couldn't drive that fast, far, if I remember that correctly.
Driver and 3 would be.
Yeah. And also, we had, that's why I'm trying to get my head around it, that Tony Kamunjan, with his winery down in Augusta, wanted to put a winery there, and that's when we had a very contentious thing. I think Ron Setley had to call the police in here because we had
So
200-300 people out there. So I'm trying to, if it's the same piece of property, because we had all the people from Washington.
So Gary, is there something, do we have somebody from the Catholic Church here that you're concerned about or something, or do you know?
So we do have somebody from
Okay,
the
all right,
church.
all right.
Okay. But I'm trying to get in the location where
Sure.
this is, if it's the same piece of property.
I'm
don't think it
not
is.
sure, I'm sorry.
That was right across from the church. That was right across the street from that
Yeah.
church the last time.
But
That was directly across the
Corner,
street.
and there's a lot of
Yep,
accidents.
Yep,
and
yeah, that was
slowing
right
down
across the
and-
street. Yep, this is different.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think Noblaze was involved in
No.
that matter.
No, no, it
That
was just
that
another
was,
piece.
that was
No,
Tony,
it
I think
was
Tony
adjacent
wanted
It
to
was
do
completely
that.
separate.
Yeah.
He's just remembering another one we had
It
some
was
problems
Augusta
on.
Winery.
Yeah, that's
It's all
what it
that little section there on that highway, it's
Yeah.
very
like F.
contentious.
Yeah, that was right across the
With
street.
traffic, safety, and.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
I do have a question. It says no more than 280 guests allowed. Does that mean the facility that's going to be built is going to house up to 280?
That's my understanding. I did speak with the applicant briefly, and he could speak to this more about it, but I explained about the sprinkler system and such, and they are prepared to accommodate all of the requirements.
Okay.
Just a question, it looks like a do-it-yourself wedding, who has to get a liquor license for renting that facility?
It's a
Who's
ca-
responsible for
It's a
that?
catering company is the one that does it, normally. Unless they have it their own, unless they have a thing that they have to be licensed for.
It could be either or, they could get their own, or the caterers could have one.
Right.
They're going to have their own, I can tell you that.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, let's go ahead and bring the applicant up. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
Brad Schreiber, 429 Traceway Drive, Montgomery, Texas.
Go ahead, Brad.
Came here just to visit you guys, thanks.
Uh-huh.
Boy, I'm glad Mr. Barrio went first. I'd like to give you a little history of our company. We have, without degrading any other types of facilities or any other types of operations, our company is made up of hospitality professionals that have been anywhere from in corporate positions in the Marriott. I have experience in managing hotels, resorts, developing food service operations. I actually at one time lived here in the great city of St. Louis. I worked for the Levy Restaurants. I opened the Convention Center Dome Stadium when the Rams first came here and managed the food service there. We have our Vice President of Culinary Operations was one of Hyatt Resort's top chefs on the West Coast. We have a sister company called Ashton Gardens, home-based in Houston. We've been in business for going on 13 years there. We have 4 wedding facilities, different concept, very large, seats up to 400, European style, big columns, lots of chandeliers, way too expensive to build, way too expensive to operate. We're, luckily successful at it. We have a chapel as well. We have 2 in Houston, 1 in Dallas, and 1 in Atlanta. Like I said, we've been operating for over 12 years, almost 13 years now. We've hosted, we host about 700 events a year. And since we started the company, we're pushing about a million guests that we've served. So I say that to make the point that we're professionals at this. We understand. Certainly a lot of the questions that came up earlier, and I'm sure some that you'll have now, we're not strangers to. We actually, on the topic you were discussing about the noise, we actually helped craft some language in a city where we were proposing in Ashton Gardens to help the council to define what our restrictions would be on that. We've seen that before. We understand the concerns of the community and the neighbors. Thank you for accepting. I did hand out another addition to the packet that I sent earlier with the application that are testimonials to our professionalism, to our community activities, and as well our consideration for neighbors. Our Ashton Gardens properties, I think with one exception, are almost directly adjacent to neighborhoods. We do buy wooded parcels. We do make sure that there is a large barrier of forestation and natural foliage between us and the neighbors. That's been number one, it's a condition of what we need to create the atmosphere that we want, and it's consideration for the neighbors as well, so there's no sight or sound impedance on them. Addressing the noise issue that was so widely discussed earlier, we have gone to the extent of hiring audiologists to do decibel level tests to convince neighbors it would be okay. And we have yet to receive any citations or complaints based on that. Our consideration for neighbors, our consideration for the community is absolutely paramount. As I said, we've all been professionals in this industry for way longer than I'd be willing to admit, but we understand the sensitivity of that. Why are we here? Well, this business of the rustic wedding concept has been around for a while. Folks like Mr. Barrio, for example, who gets into the business by having a building or finishing a building or creating a space on their property. It's kind of how this got started. When they say barn weddings, when you say barn weddings, that's what it is. It's barn weddings. They're barns converted or barns used to hold events. We have, we've taken that a step further. I don't know, Ellie, do we have the pictures of the artist renderings or the architect renderings?
Hold on one second.
Okay. I have prints of them if we don't
While
have
that's
them.
coming up, does anybody have any questions for Brad at this point?
I've got one question. Will this be a franchise or you have local management?
It's not a franchise. It's all company-owned properties.
You'll have local management on site?
We will. We will. And it is a do-it-yourself. It's a do-it-yourself with conditions. For example, the discussion of liquor service, although we will not hold the liquor license, the caterer will. We will have conditions that the caterer will have to meet. For example, in our Ashton Gardens company, we do all the food, we do all the liquor, we have all the service staff works for us. Everything is completely in-house. All the servers are required by, the states have different beverage handling requirements, certifications, if you will. Our training for that is so far well beyond that.
Let's stick to what's going to happen here. Ashton Gardens is fine, but we're focused on what's going to happen at this
Are you
location.
going to do those things here?
We will insist that the same standards be upheld by whoever occupies the space or the caterer. That's the point I'm trying to make.
We have an employee there at all these events.
There will be.
The do-it-yourself.
There will be.
I'm not quite familiar with what exactly that means.
Do-it-yourself is you rent the facility.
Right.
And you have pretty much all-day access to the facility, the bride and the groom and the family. We will provide tables, chairs, table linens, not much else, maybe some decor. The caterer, a decorator, DJ, cake vendor, et cetera, will be hired by the family, the bride and the groom, who rents the facility, and bring them in. They will all have to be approved by our company. It's nobody working out of their garage or something like that,
Who's responsible if the party gets out of hand? Not that that ever happens, but,
No. I guess it depends on the circumstance. I can't really address that. If there are liquor violations, it's the person the company that holds the liquor license.
But you will have somebody there to shut down the event at the appropriate time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That intersection where Hemsath hits 94, it's not a three-way stop. Who's going to control traffic? That's a very bad accident section of Highway 94.
Well, the interest of the property is going to be somewhat across the street from the winery.
But your ingress and egress into the property, I understand that, but people coming out, they're going to have to get on 94. And if, let's say, a wedding, you've got 200 or 300 people leaving after they've been drinking or not drinking.
Right.
It's still a situation. I asked that because I brought that up before to staff. That area, a lot of these issues were brought up with another proposed winery, Nobles, the church, speeding, motorcycles, blind access over 94, and now you're adding another element, which is, most receptions, everybody's drinking, so it's not a good situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of these churches even hire off-duty policemen to control traffic here in the St. Charles proper city and county. But out there in the rural area, I think it's even more important. If you're turning this loose, and as Mr. Klinghammer said, who's going to be responsible? Do you have somebody out there for directing traffic to stand out when the party breaks up? It's a very dangerous road.
Yeah, it's a good question, and again, we're no strangers to the question. It comes up to just about every time we introduce a new property and community. I have to answer it in a couple of ways. Number one, we're responsible for we will require security to be hired by the event host or bride and groom, whoever that may be, whoever signs a contract. We're going to require them to hire that. In every other location, we have off-duty police officers that we use. We hope we can use that here. It depends on local rules. Some places don't allow their policemen to do that for whatever reason, but if that's allowed, that's what we would ask for. We have done traffic flow studies. We contracted traffic flow studies at every location that we've had. We'd be happy to do it here, and even at the events at our facilities that we have 300 or 400 guests at, because of the time and the amount of cars that enter at different times. They're not all coming and going at one time. It's a flow in and even more of a trickle out. And not once have we had an issue by the local DOTs or the state DOTs that said, the traffic has been an issue. And we'd be happy to perform that here. As far as directing traffic anywhere off of our property, there's so many facets to that we can't be responsible for. There are two ways in and out of that property. And even in more heavily congested areas where we have neighborhoods and other businesses and other commercial entities around us, the traffic has not been an issue, and we'd be happy to introduce a DOT traffic survey for that.
How many parking spaces are you going to have?
As many as required by the county.
So if I call you to have a wedding, I'm going to say I'm going to have 300 people at my wedding. I need to get my caterer, I need to get my liquor, I need to get my band, I need to get my security. I mean, what exactly, you guys just provide linens in the room and chairs? And then you hit the road, or I don't understand how this, I've never seen anything.
Yeah, it's an exceptionally popular concept in Texas, for example. We have another property that's going up outside of Austin. It's called Dripping Springs. It's in the hill country. There are a dozen places like that where you rent the facility and you bring in your caterer. Even at full service properties, the only thing that you get is the food and the beverage. After that, you hire everybody else yourself anyway, the entertainment, the cake, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This concept allows and it's really competing with the growth of this has competed with our other company in that there's not as many restrictions as a full service type property. So as the bride and the groom, I can have barbecue, or I can have tenderloin, or I can have whatever I want. I can bring it in at whatever my price point is. We rent the facility, and we have staff on site just to make sure that people get in and out and nobody hurts anything, or whatever the case is, or if there's an emergency, there's somebody to respond to it. And we supervise the caterers, and we supervise the DJ and everybody who's coming on and off the property. But yes, you go out and you hire your own vendors.
What was so attractive about this location? It seems like you'd be one in a more populated area.
No, I tell you what, number one, again, having worked here before and knowing the area somewhat, the size of the metropolitan area, the type of property that's available, the size of the parcels that are available at the price points that they are, with the type of rural feel that they have, was perfect for us. We're looking at what we consider like secondary cities to, like our other properties are in Dallas and Houston, Atlanta. We need big population bases for those. We don't need the same population base for this. It's a lot less expensive to build. It's the hottest concept out there right now in the wedding business.
Are you going to have an office in St. Louis, or where your company can be contacted if there's a problem or an issue?
Oh, sure. We'll have a management on staff.
Oh, at the location?
At the location.
Okay.
Certainly, yeah. We're looking in other similar cities. We're looking at Kansas City. We're looking in Louisville. We're looking in Nashville. Similar size cities that have the same type of population and also the same type of availability of property, not too far from the major population.
Right.
It's great for us.
So could your company sponsor an event and bring people in? To the facility, like have your own gathering to bring people in?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I guess I heard you say you develop resort properties. I mean, could you use that as a sales venue, bring people in for an event, but use that to market your other resort properties?
We wouldn't. No, we're just too far away. We're another. This is strictly for the wedding business in this area. You know, plain and simple. You know, and it's one wedding a day. You know, again, to go back to answer the noise questions and that sort of thing, we do have a chapel, which is different than virtually every other venue like ours, even the more popular ones where this concept it has really taken hold. Very few of the sites have chapels. Most of them have outdoor weddings. So, you know, January, February, March, dead of the summer, we can still host weddings where others can't. And, you know, we hope to fill them every weekend, but that's what makes us different. The design of the facility is also different. It is but did we decide if we have those?
We did not
We-
have.
It's okay, Brad.
Okay, the design of the facility is also different as well. We have an in-house architect, and you know we've got you know, this same Fall Creek concept and design that goes to other cities is a trademark.
Right, I can assume that you wouldn't have an issue if we put the same condition on that the events are held within the buildings. It's in your brochure here.
That's yeah. Oh no, it's going to be.
Okay.
There's going to be. First of all, you know, I'm not going to not try to kid anybody, but people are going to go from indoors to outdoors. They're just going to. They're going to go outside because the property's beautiful, because there's going to be, you know, whether it's mine or anybody else's, they're going to go outside to smoke. They're going to go outside, you know, because it's a nice day and they like the trees and whatever else is going on. That's just simply going to happen. We are going to have a space designed in there between the buildings that's going to be designated for kind of an outdoor social space, if you will, that will not have music outside. All the music will be contained in the reception building, and we give them that space to go, and it's in between the buildings, and the way it's designed will be between the two buildings with a barrier of the trees behind it, because the way it's set, behind the buildings, we're keeping all that tree line. We're keeping everything we can on that property that's natural. Okay. So that'll also help contain any noise, but there's not going to be any music outside. That's just not, we just don't allow that anyway.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
We're going to go ahead and open it up to the public. If there's anyone in the room that wants to speak for or against this is the time to do it. And please try to keep your comments, again, as a reminder, to 3 minutes. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
My name is Martin Struckoff. I live at 5920 Highway 94 South, Augusta, Missouri. Not too far away on 94, further east, near the Catholic Church down there. We've been trying to get a little more definition from the people. I mean, all the neighbors are against this, but trying to get an answer from the people that have been calling in, you know, the difference between this being zoned agricultural versus the agricultural tourist district. You know, we've been getting kind of a hard understanding of exactly what the difference is, because Noblest Winery, which is located right on the other side of Hemsath Road, and I talked to Bob last night, was always on the understanding that he had to abide, when he was building that, under the agricultural tourist district standings, which we know requires 40 acres, 150.
We're not changing the zoning on this, though.
Yeah. The one thing we had a question on is section 405.520, which talks about another facility such as doing the same business being a half a mile away. You guys, we don't know if that applies here or not. You guys are the experts on that, so I can't really say, but we are worried about that. This would probably be almost the only place in the Augusta unincorporated area where one be so close to each other. Mr. Griffin brought up a point about the safety issues. Could you bring up the map where the Noblest Winery's on one side, the bigger plat? We talked about there was actually I think, a 10 o'clock time limit, I believe, on this one.
Can you bring up the one that shows Noblest Wine, the picture of it from the
Yeah, or the next one right next to that would probably give a better view if possible. The one you had up right.
one more back?
Yeah, there. You can see Noblest Winery is directly across from Hemsath Road to where they're planning the entrance to be to theirs. Noblest Winery also does weddings and hold their functions till 10 o'clock or so at night too. We're not against this concept at all. We do worry about the safety issue that Mr. Griffin brings up also. You're not just talking about 250 people out of their facility coming out Hemsath Road onto 94. You're also talking probably another 250, I don't even know what Noblest Winery allows to have, you know, at their places and their outdoor facilities and such. But they too will be coming down Hemsath Road at 10 o'clock at night trying to pull out into 94. So we're not just dealing with just one, you know, parcel of such a, you know, such venue. We're dealing with Noblest Winery, which we're fine. Nobody's against Noblest Winery and such. They've been great neighbors. They've, I actually know Bob and Luann very well.
So Martin, your time's beginning to run out. Is there anything else you have? I'm sorry.
Okay, well, that's the one thing we really
So
want you
about
guys.
the traffic.
I'm sorry?
You're worried about the traffic.
Well, we're worried about
And
the
having it
traffic,
close to
but just the whole, the other thing is, we own the farm north and south of that entrance. We own the 150 acres along 94 there. We are looking to get back into doing a little more farming and doing hogs again and such, and we're probably going to be leasing out
That'd
the
be perfect
land that's
for a
north of that. We just want to make sure there's not going to be any problem with them coming back to us and then doing on that. But we hope you do guys add the stipulations like on the last place that you guys had on the outdoor and that.
Yeah. Thank you. Is anybody else in the room wants to speak on this? Please come forward. Come on up. And again, if you're speaking and you haven't filled out a card, make sure you do that, speaker's card. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
My name's Robert Nolan. I'm in 1444 Timber Lake in Chesterfield.
Go ahead, Robert.
My wife and I are the owners of Noble Eyes Vineyards right across the street from this proposed facility. And we have some questions. And they relate around the whole agriculture, tourism provisions that were passed some time ago. We're wondering, were they overturned? Did we get rid of those?
The agritourism zoning district is still in effect. You do
Yeah.
have to have a minimum of 40 acres. That is not what they are asking for. They are not asking for rezoning. They're asking for a conditional use permit.
I thought that is what the conditional use permit was controlling. No?
No.
No, and-
This is strictly a conditional use permit under agricultural zoning.
Under agriculture, okay. So the requirements relative to the footage from
Robert,
streets, et cetera?
could you address us?
Yeah.
We'll ask the staff.
There's a requirement for a 150-foot setback from all streets, et cetera. And is this, has to comply with that or no? Because we're not changing the zoning?
We'll ask the staff.
Pardon?
We'll ask them. Those are good questions.
Okay. One other point. Let's see. Well, the other point was the half mile distance. Again, we are right across the street. We're 40 feet away. Our property's 40 feet away from this facility. Sure. We do exactly the same business. It seems to me, my reading again of the agriculture tourism provisions state that these buildings or these businesses have to be a half a mile apart. And I think that's really the spirit of this whole agriculture tourism provisions, is to maintain a rural feeling. When you put two identical kinds of facilities right next to each other in a rural setting, you're going to have major problems. There is nowhere in St. Charles County where two wineries are sitting next to each other, where two wedding facilities are sitting next to each other. This is the one place, way out 2 miles from Warren County, in the far western end of St. Charles County. We're going to put 2 wedding facilities right next to each other in a very rural area. I think it's a mistake. And it's obviously a bad deal for me, because I've spent millions of dollars developing the property right next to it, where I have 84 acres. I've complied with everything that's been required of me to do what we do. And I see this just coming in from Texas, buying 13 acres, and suddenly they're going to put up a, 8,000 square foot, 9,000 square foot of facility? This is not maintaining a rural environment at all.
Okay.
So we're against it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else in the room who wants to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close the public portion of it and ask the applicant to come back up.
Yeah, thank you. I'll address the concerns real quickly. As far as safety and traffic goes, the number of events that will, if our maximum capacity is 280, we will have maybe 10 or 11 events a year, that capacity. We wish we would have them every weekend, but the fact is that it isn't. The average size wedding that we have, even our larger facilities and statistics in this area, is right around 145 guests. So that's some days with 200 plus, and a lot more with a lot less than that. So our average is 145, and that number kind of holds true everywhere. We do our homework on that, so we understand the statistics of the market, which is half the number of cars in capacity. So the number of days that there will be 85 cars, which I think is a requirement, or 85 parking spaces on a flow, is going to be very few. Number one. Number two, we're currently going to build one of these in Dripping Springs, Texas. There are within 10 miles, and in some cases within a couple of miles of us, very similar facilities. There's about a dozen of them around there. Having competition or having other facilities in the area is really good for business. We will attract, and it's good for the winery, and it's good for other facilities that may not have the type of capacity we have, or may be a different price point, or may just indeed that we don't have a date that somebody's looking for. So if we attract, we suspect that there will be about 1,500 people a year just looking at our facility, looking for a place to go. If they're coming to look at us, they're looking at the winery as well. We refer at every one of our locations, we refer, as is mutual with others, business to other facilities. Inevitably, there's going to be dates where we're not going to have available. As soon as we sell one particular Saturday, somebody comes looking for one, we don't have it. We would love to have someplace like the winery or other facilities in the area we could refer them to. That's just simply good for business. We'll attract approximately 30,000 people a year between guests and just people coming to visit the facility for tours. That's good for everybody. The economic impact is, the additional economic impact for the county is pretty substantial as well. We figure if, I'll just get to the bottom line number, we figure the impact is going to be somewhere around $2.5 million above and beyond what revenue we will get. That's local caterers, it's local photographers, it's decorators, it's florists, it's you name it. And plus the jobs that are created by this. There will be approximately 20 full and part-time jobs created by this between us and the
Brad,
vendors.
I appreciate all that information.
Okay.
I want to kind of get going with this too. So,
okay.
Is there any questions from staff, from us, or the commission?
One more question. How many events in a place like this do you need to do a year to break even? What's your goal?
What's our goal?
Yeah.
365?
I shouldn't say what you're paying. That's a bad question. What
What do we think we're going to
reasonably
do?
need to do to make money here?
Well, our goal is to do 120 events a year.
120 events?
120 events. That's less than every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's what we think we're going to do based on market statistics and everything that we know about.
That's not that much less than every Friday and Saturday. It would be 150, right?
Well, it's a lot less when it comes to, finance it, but yeah, I mean, we know that there's going to be gaps in there and there's going to be holidays and things of that sort. So, our financial model is based on that.
Okay.
Is this facility going to be open to the general public? Obviously, are people going to be driving in and out, looking at the grounds? Is it going to be drawing people in during the weekends also, even if there's not an event?
If there's not an event, then we will be open for people to take tours of the property. Typically, it's not going to be open to the public, or we will not schedule tours for the property if it's rented, and you usually get it all day. So
Will you be able to serve beverages and
No.
food?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Any other questions? Seeing none, go ahead and close this. You have a question of staff? Thanks, Brad. You can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On the recommendations in this request, there's no reference to weddings. So does that mean I could have a retirement party on a Wednesday?
That would be another event, anniversary parties, receptions of any sort like that.
So the events could be any type at any day of the week?
There's no proposed condition
Yeah.
on that restriction, no.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
For staff, what about the half-mile separation the gentleman brought up?
Again, I believe he's referring to the agritourism district. This is agricultural district. That is a completely separate district.
Yeah, I think what the commission's having a hard time with, some of them, they don't understand the difference between the zoning change and a conditional use permit on this specific use. Because Noblest had to have it zoned a certain way to do what they have, and it had to have 40 acres or whatever it was. This one is a conditional use, it's not changing the zoning.
Actually, if you want to speak about Noblesse.
Is that the case?
Winery requires a conditional use permit, but you can have it with a conditional use permit in the agricultural zoning district. I don't think we have any whatsoever agricultural tourism zoning in the county that I recall. I think it's more of it's more than an idea. It's a way forward for people who want to have like a conference center or a place that has, again, a conference center, or for, let's see, like a hotel along with a winery. Yeah, almost like a resort. So that sort of level of development in the agricultural tourism district requires a minimum of 40 acres. You can only develop like a maximum of 7%, I think it is. It's got to be in the middle of the property. You can have half-mile distance. That's a pretty high level, pretty high standard to meet, and we haven't had anyone requesting to rezone to that district. This is kind of an intermediate between those two, honestly, I think. So in agricultural zoning district, the county council is allowing these, and you can place conditions upon it, but it doesn't have those same standards about the minimum of 40 acres or no more than 7% development of the property, or doesn't have the half-mile distance, things like that.
That answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Well, just discussion with Tom was trying to get his head around with the concept, and also I just know the area. Trying to still get my head around the concept, but I personally don't think that's the right area for it. So
okay,
I pass that along.
Okay. Any other comments?
I think I'd like to add the same condition again, just to keep it consistent that all events are held indoors.
So condition 7 added to it.
Yeah, we'll use the same language that we used on the previous one.
I guess we need a motion
That's
on
a
that.
motion to
Yeah,
that
hold on.
effect.
Let me get another sheet. These extra sheets for these are always fun. Okay, we have a motion to add condition 7, similar to the conditions we had from the previous one.
Second.
Mr. Klinghammer, Mr. Ellis. All right. Mr. Fromm votes yes. Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
No.
Mr. Kuhn?
No.
Mr. McDonald?
No.
Mr. Klinghammer?
This is just on the motion.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
This is on the motion.
It
On the
is on
motion
just the
to add
motion.
the other condition.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I thought that there might have been some confusion on that.
Yeah. Want to try it again? Yeah. Let's do it again. Mr. Fromm votes yes. Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Klinghammer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
9-0. Now I need a motion to accept this application.
Like that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. I need a second. Please,
Second.
Mr. Ellis. Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
What are we voting on?
We're actually voting on passing the
Passing
applicant.
it
Yep.
with the condition.
With the stipulations.
Right.
Yep. No. Mr. Fromm votes yes. Mr. Kuhn?
No.
Mr. McDonald?
No.
Mr. Klinghammer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
No.
Mr. McBride?
No.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
So that fails, 4-5. It still goes to the county council, because it can, the county council can approve this, so you still need to show up for that meeting also, and that's on July the 10th. Thank you.
It's always good to hear the argument all over again.
Yep, that's always the case. Okay, we're going to move on to our next one. It's CUP 17-09. It's a conditional use request. The owners are Leonard Kirkendall and Josie Kirkendall. Applicant is Troy Town Development Center Incorporated. The use requested is a preschool and/or daycare center. The property zoning is A agricultural, and the area is 3 acre in size. The location is on the southwest corner of the interstate of Highway Z and Meadowbrook Estates Lane. It's in Council District 2. Staff?
All right, thanks. Again, the applicant is Town Developmental Center Incorporated, and the owners are the Kirkendalls. The property is zoned A agricultural zoning district. Thanks for putting the aerial photograph up. You'll notice this property is 3 acres in size, and as you said, it's on the southwest corner of Z and Meadowbrook Estates Lane. Basically, it's between Highway N and 70, and it's really on the edge of Wentzville and Wentzville development. Go to the next image here. Sorry. There we go. You notice the green, that signifies agricultural zoning in the county. The white signifies what's already been annexed into the city of Wentzville. So you'll notice that this property fronts on, again, it's on the west side of Highway Z, but it's bordered on 2 sides by the city of Wentzville subdivisions. And oops. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm getting help with the site.
Sorry.
That, by the way, is a notification map where we notify the neighbors. Thank you. This is the most recent site plan that's been submitted for this application. Currently, there's a ranch-style house, and the proposal, if this would be approved, this conditional use permit, again, just for the clarification, it's not being proposed to be zoned commercial. I noticed several of the letters mentioned about commercial zoning, but what they're really asking for is that the agricultural zoning would remain, but a conditional use permit for a daycare. And there's a ranch-style house here now, so that house would be modified. And for example, the garage will be removed and a playground will be installed basically where the garage is located. Parking would need to be installed on the property in front. I'd say one of the more difficult problems to deal with, I believe, is access, and for a couple of reasons. One, Highway Z, there's an interest in the city of Wentzville has of controlling access in order to keep cars moving. And so there's a development right across the street that was only allowed to have right-in access off of Highway Z. I would say regardless, though, they're going to have to meet whatever the access requirements are of MoDOT, because this is a MoDOT highway out front. So at the time of what we call the site plan review, this is a concept, but should this be approved, they'd still have to go through site plan approval through the county staff, and that would require an engineered site plan. They have to meet MoDOT requirements for access. Another concern is that the driveway is so close to Meadowbrook there. And so because the driveway is going to have to be widened to have a commercial, to meet the fire access lane requirements, right now it's pretty narrow, but it's going to have to be widened to 20 feet. It's conceivable that the driveway location might have to move somewhere along that frontage. But that, again, that question would come up at the time of site plan approval and site plan review. In terms of uses, the master plan envisions for this property future land use of low-density residential. And if you look in the master plan, the land use classifications, you'll notice that there's a category called primary uses, which, as you might imagine, are low-density residential, but there's also secondary uses in that future recommended planning area. And secondary uses, it says, supporting and complementary uses, including open space and recreation, schools, places of worship, and other public or civic uses are also appropriate in this category. And I would say appropriate as determined by conditional use permit by this body and by the county council. County staff has received quite a few, let's see here, I'm sorry. We've received quite a few communications, and I did want to just to read into the record here that we've received a letter of concern from Ricky Kohler, letters of opposition from William Shea, G. Scott and Robin Tinker, Sandra and Stephen Krieg, Dennis Boxdorfer and Cindy Brandt, Michelle Schaefer, Kevin Mountain, Thomas and Andrea Lewis, Ward Petito, Brent and Amy Westoff, Christopher Ebner, Dave and Julie Homan. A letter of comment from City of Wentzville, opposition from Larry and Pam Grimes, opposition from Rob and Jeanette Hemman, opposition from Kurt and Judy Presson, opposition from Douglas Furing, concerns from Harold and Barbara Sieve, opposition from Dito and Dortis Mazzola, and then finally we have this updated Tiketown preliminary site plan that you received probably tonight. What I would recommend is that you review the conditional use permit, the criteria, and take into consideration the criteria as part of your assessment. County staff does recommend for approval with certain conditions, and those conditions are in your staff report. I'll just refer to them quickly. But one is that a site plan substantially in conformance to the concept plan must be submitted and approved by the county, indicating the entrance, parking, and location of all structures. No conditional use will be active until all conditions of the approval have been met. And essentially, where any conditional use is not in place within 2 years, it becomes null and void. And finally, the number of children that would be limited to 66 as applied for by the applicants.
Any questions of staff?
Are we going to be voting on this the way it exactly looks on the, with the way the road goes out to Highway Z? Is that what we're voting on? The way the
From
driveway, I'm
Z.
saying, goes out to Highway Z.
This is a concept plan, so it has to be, if this, let's just say if this concept plan were approved by the county council, it'd have to be in substantial conformity to this. So the driveway will be from Z, yes,
Okay.
yeah. As I understand it, that's a private street, and so they'd have to get approval from anyway. The other factor is, I'd say that, that daycares that take access from within a subdivision, we actually think it's beneficial when daycares take access from state highways and from the arterial roadways rather than from an interior residential street. So I think it's beneficial that a daycare such as this takes access from from arterial street.
I did not know that.
Any other questions, staff?
Didn't we do something with this several months ago?
I don't remember it.
I remember this property. Weren't they here before, maybe within the last 6 months?
Wasn't that a different one?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a
lady
different
named
one.
April Robinson
Yeah.
submitted about a year ago.
Right.
Okay.
That was very much a residential subdivision, not on a road like Highway Z. And I don't think we've had anything since Ms. Robinson's.
That was on a cul-de-sac street.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, staff? Seeing none, let's go ahead and bring the applicant up. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
And state your name and address for the record.
Jason Chambers, 2240 Lake St. Louis Boulevard.
Teresa Chambers, 2240 Lake St. Louis Boulevard.
Okay, go ahead.
We are coming forward because we already have businesses right now. We have one in Lincoln County and we have one in St. Charles County. Tiketown Developmental Center is located on Lake St. Louis Boulevard, as well as a newer location that we have in Troy. We are a small business. Both of our locations are under 100 children, and we are very proud. We've been in the St. Charles County for 21 years. I've operated that facility now. We're celebrating our 21st year.
So you have two other facilities?
I do.
And how many
yes.
people, how many kids are at those facilities?
My Lake St. Louis is a little bit larger. We are licensed for 96, and then our location in Troy is also licensed for 66.
So how many do you have, though?
Typically, you run about 80%.
Okay.
License capacity, obviously, is every room filled every day. So typically, our license capacity is around the 80% mark with part-timers. We have preschool and childcare, and that plays a big factor. Preschool hours kind of vary. You know, parents, those are more of an 8 to 11 a.m. type of hour, whereas childcare, you know, parents are filtering in all morning. You know, some go to work at 6, some go to work at, 7. So we just, we see a variety. But typically, we run our capacity of 66, we see around 50 children a day.
Are you going to buy this property?
That is what we are, yeah. Earlier, they had mentioned that the owner was the Kirkendalls, and that is true, but the applicants are my husband and I, so, and we...
We own Tiketown.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the ratio of the number of staff to children?
It is on the average of 1 to 10. We will have 3 and 4-year-olds will be the most of our students, which is 1 to 10. 2-year-olds is 1 to 8, and then for ages 5 and above is 1 to 16. We won't have much capacity for that, though. It'll be primarily ages 3 and 4.
Thank you.
And just to speak on that site plan there, this was done very fast. This property was an opportunity that arose, and we chose to put a contract on it. So we put this together fairly quick. Teresa and I, we have contacted an architect, Ron Powell, in St. Charles. So we're working with him to get a better site plan. But that road actually goes to Z. It's its own driveway. So I didn't carry it to Z.
Yeah, we won't be
but-
using Meadowbrook Estates whatsoever.
Yeah.
We'll have our own access, and that will be completely paved as well. When we do take possession of the property, it'll probably be a 4-month construction process we're kind of estimating. Because the inside of that home will have to be changed to larger classrooms. We'll be remodeling all of it. It'll be very similar to my Troy and my Lake St. Louis location. So the outside of it will have a residential feel to it. That's very welcoming to our parents. But at the same time, it will be much larger, and it'll be much more, it'll be very attractive.
When we did submit pictures or photos, I'm not sure if you guys got them of our 2 locations.
No, we didn't get those. That's okay.
Okay. I don't have those, unfortunately, but.
Any other questions of Jason and Tracy? Seeing none, you're going to be back, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and open it up to the public. Again, I see there's a lot of people in opposition on this. If it's the same thing over and over again, we kind of got it, so we need a couple of you to speak, but we don't want to hear the same thing over and over and over again. Raise your right hand. You're ready, aren't you?
I've listened.
Yeah. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mary Ann Wilson, and I live at 311 Meadowbrook Estates Lane in Wentzville.
Go ahead, Mary.
My concern I can sum up in 3 words, and that's traffic, traffic, and traffic. I have a very difficult time getting out of my subdivision as it is. As a retired person, I can make my own schedule, but I cannot hardly ever schedule anything before 9 a.m. in the morning because of the traffic. If I come out of Meadowbrook and I turn right to go down N, I'm stopped by traffic because of the school and the Lutheran church. If I come out of my driveway and go left, by the time I get to Perry Kate, I'm already stopped and I'm in line forever to get to the stoplight to get on 70. And this is before the new school opens up and before the nursing home opens up. I can't imagine what it would be like at that intersection trying to get in and out with additional 60 cars or 50 cars. There's a swell on that intersection from where we are, which is Meadowbrook, and then Whisper Creek right across the way. We have a new fire station. And then there's this other empty lot, which we're not sure what's going on with. There's been some talk of a small, some small offices or whatever. Traffic does not flow at the correct rate of speed. On Sundays, when there's church, we have to have a police officer out there to let people in and out of the church. I just can't imagine with a school and a nursing home how much more traffic this road can handle. There's near accidents all the time. And with the assisted living facility going in, which means that the older generation that will live there has the ability to drive cars, I have a very big concern about accidents.
Okay.
Like I say, there's just a huge amount of traffic.
I just have one question. Is that a 4-way stop at
No.
Z? No stop at either way? Nothing?
No, the only light on Z is up closer to 70 where the gas station is.
So there's nothing there at that intersection?
Nothing from that light all the way to the intersection of N and Z.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a question. The senior facility is an independent living or an assisted facility?
I'm not 100% sure because I've heard both, but even assisted living, sometimes they can drive. We don't want to see that.
You don't want to see anybody drive?
Not my mother-in-law.
Okay, I got you. I'm with you. I don't want my wife driving, so there you go.
But,
okay, well, Mary Ann, I think we got it. You're
Okay.
concerned about the traffic.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else in the room who wants to speak on this matter? Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name and address for the record?
Gary Gerber at 551 Meadowfield Lane in Wentzville, Missouri.
Go ahead, Gary.
I know you've heard about traffic, and I'll just kind of expand on traffic that I have been in contact with MoDOT, with their senior traffic specialist, Paul Graham. And MoDOT is currently would not allow access for this type of property to be with a conditional use permit. I do know people have used the word commercial, but they're considering a daycare as commercial in MoDOT's for as their requirements to enter and exit Highway Z. And they would like to see 200-foot of buffer between any existing driveways. Currently, if they put the driveway of this property on the opposite side, which would be away from Meadowbrook Estates, it's only 184 feet.
Okay.
So with that being said on traffic, I'll let you make your determinations of that. I also have other concerns with this is, as said, this is a very residential area. We have all 3-acre lots currently where I live, but it's a nice quiet area, and we're concerned about the kids with playgrounds outside, that type of scenario. The other question I have is the property is currently septic, I believe, and with that amount of children and activity in the property, how would the septic be addressed?
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the room?
I can answer a few of the questions.
Could you raise your right hand for me, sir?
Yes.
You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name and address for the
I'm
record?
Bill Shea, and I live at 29 Fieldstone Estates Court. My backyard abuts the proposed child care center.
Okay.
The senior center, I was told, I don't know if it's a nursing home or assisted living, but the senior center has 136 units. There is a Morgan Child Development Center going into that same area. It's going to have 200 children at the Morgan School. And anyway, that picture up there really doesn't do it justice. Whisper Creek subdivision is directly across the street from their driveway as it exists right now, where the firehouse is at.
Sure.
And that is really, it's a blind intersection. When you're coming up over the hill, you cannot see cars from a distance.
So you're concerned about the traffic?
Very.
Okay. Well, Bill, I
And,
think we've got that. We understand that.
Our subdivision would have the original plot plan. It has a dumpster right up against our backyards at Fieldstone Estates. And also the sewers, their original proposal had they would hook into Wentzville sewers. Well, they can't unless they're annexed into Wentzville. I talked to the Public Works at Wentzville.
Sure.
I think that's primarily what I wanted to clear up.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else in the room? Come on up. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your names and address for the record.
My name's Scott, and this is Robin Tinker. We're at 301 Meadowbrook Estates Lane, Wentzville, Missouri.
I'm sorry, your wife's name?
Robin.
Robin. Go ahead.
That's our house right there on the map. My house, 50 feet from the applicant's property line.
Okay.
Traffic, you all know about the traffic.
Sure.
My concern is I bought into this neighborhood. That's not a piece of commercial property, that's a home. I've been in this neighborhood 15 years now. We bought it because of the view and because of the 3-acre lots. You're going to destroy my property value if we put a commercial business in right next door.
Okay.
That's my biggest concern.
Okay. Robin.
And then I guess I just have questions on, because it is, whether it's commercial or whatever. So most of the businesses are on the opposite side where the fire station and everything is. And then you have Fieldstone, then Meadowbrook, and then the other subdivision right next door. And then we tend to be a little bit older in these subdivisions. There are some kids. But I guess one of my questions is there a fence around the whole thing? I mean, how are the kids contained on the property?
We'll ask them that.
Okay.
Is that it?
I think so.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to speak on this? Please come forward. Come on up. Otherwise, I'm going to close it. Don't hesitate. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
My name is Tom Manor. I'm at 28 Fieldstone Estates Court in Wentzville.
Go ahead, Tom.
I am a homeowner and a trustee of Fieldstone Estates subdivision, which is just south of this property. Can we bring up the aerial map again, please? We had an incident that happened just this past spring where we were out in front of our subdivision cleaning up our common ground, mulching and whatnot. There was a minor incident involving the work that we were doing, which precipitated the need for an engine out of Firehouse 5, an engine coming out of Station 5 to come pay us a visit. So.
What was the incident?
We were burning some brush.
Oh.
And the engine
So
stopped
the fire
just.
department had to come out and put a fire out?
Yeah.
And
seems-
how is this related
So
to this?
the engine stopped, the engine stopped just north of the entrance to our subdivision, which you can see right there. In the 2 minutes that he was parked there were cars coming up that traffic and had to stop. They were directing traffic around that engine, but there was that swell that the First Lady talked about actually sits further north of the intersection of all of those. And when you're coming up that intersection, it is completely blind. And he had to there was a truck that actually had to slam on his brakes and stop just where their driveway is. Okay. And he's completely blind. And so the traffic backs up, can back up very, very quickly along that swell. My wife is works for the school district of Wentzville. She's going to be the principal secretary at that new elementary school, which is just north of this property. From day one, they're going to be having about 800 students at that elementary school. And that's based on all the rezoning and the reshuffling around of kids from all the different schools that are in existence today into the new school, in addition to bringing the 6th grade down from middle school down into the elementary level. Okay? She's processing all of the enrollment for that. So there's going to be about 800 students in August when that starts. Okay. I've got, and you're welcome to this document, they've sent out a map and a document to all the homeowners, or to all the students who will be going to that school, documenting how they are going to manage the flow of traffic for their school and how the buses will be coming in and out each morning and each afternoon, and how the car riders will be coming in and out.
For 800 students.
For 800 students. Right. So in general, the flow is going to be buses will come in on will basically come into the school through Perry Kate, which is to the north side of the school. They will enter the school, pick up the kids, and then exit through that same access way back onto Perry Kate. And then they'll go to the intersection of Z and go where they need to, or go through Stone Meadows. Okay. They are planning on putting a light at that intersection of Z and Perry Kate. In addition, all other vehicles will come in and exit at the very south entrance of the school, which is at the very base of the property, which is at the closest point where this property is. And those cars will come in, zigzag through the parking lot, pick up their kids, and come back out
so
onto Highway Z.
the school district's got a great plan.
Yep.
So what's your...
So all I'm saying is that everybody who's got kids in these schools, 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, car riders, buses, the traffic is already there, right?
That's why they want to be there, close to all these residential areas.
I understand, but
Yeah.
we're...
Sure, I get it.
Right.
I get it.
We're talking about a lot of kids in
Yeah.
addition to, right, the traffic that's there.
Yeah.
You're welcome to this document to have that if you need that for your...
Yeah,
Okay.
appreciate it.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room that wants to speak on this? Please come up. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And your name and address for the record?
Dallas Brower, 4132 Cripple Creek Court, Wentzville, Missouri.
Dell, is it about traffic?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
No, and to speak about traffic, yes, I agree with that, but there isn't a place in Wentzville that we don't deal with that as fast as it's growing.
Yep.
I'm in favor of this. I am the real estate agent involved with both the buyer and seller, to put that up front. I would, being in real estate 20-plus years, I would never hesitate in showing a property in the scope of that map on the wall, not say that I wouldn't promote that daycare center as much as I would promote the new school, as much as I would promote the fire station kitty corner from that. I have had the opportunity to see the elevations and all the rest of that. I know the couple that are buying it, they have a stellar reputation. And at the risk of ruining my career in front of the people that are behind me, if they were to see their facility and see what they do to the facility, I think some minds might be changed.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the room? If not, we're going to go ahead and close it and bring the applicant back up and try to answer any of those questions that they have. Traffic, of course, is the biggest one. They got a fence question, dumpsters, septics. Yep.
In regard to septic, we will be upgrading that. It is not sufficient at this point.
Okay.
We did consider the city water issue. I don't think sewer. I don't think it's financially a wise decision for us. We are a small business, and we have to make sure that we can afford to make these changes, so septic upgrade is definitely the option. In regards to home property values, we'll be sinking in hundreds of thousands. So we will definitely help in that regard. Our Lake St. Louis location, those homes that are behind us actually have the highest property values in the entire neighborhood.
Are you concerned about the traffic, though, at all?
We are, in the sense that those that will be coming to our center are already driving down that street. We will have maybe 50 cars, I'm just going to approximate up to 60, but over a course of 6 a.m. all the way till about, I would say, 9:30 to 10 is our latest drop-offs. So 50.
So they won't all be there at the same, like elementary school, everybody has to be in class.
I have kids, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We may have 5 cars at 6 a.m., we may have another 5 at 7 a.m.,
And of course, most of the oppositions that are here this evening probably don't have small children that they actually need these services in this area. But
What about a fence?
the fence that is actually a state licensing requirement. The fence will be located where the existing garage is. We'll be taking that garage off, we'll be putting a fence, and that will be their playground.
And then dumpsters taking
The
care of
dumpster will
trash.
be within an enclosure, just as our other 2 facilities have, whatever requirements are there. In regards to the road, where it's at right now is at the very top of the hill, so it has the most sight line. We are definitely willing to move it if someone has a better suggestion. If MoDOT tells us that there is a better location, we have no problem with that.
Well, MoDOT's going to tell you.
Yeah.
They will. Any questions for them? Additional questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to bring it back before this commission. Any comments, questions, changes?
Well, there's definitely a demand for this type of service, but I do have some reservations because of the amount of cross streets, not only the traffic on Highway Z, but the number of movements of cars making left and right turn that are in very close proximity to there. I think that's my main concern.
Okay. Any other?
Yeah, my comment, we've seen a couple of these in subdivisions, and where they've had daycare centers where they're not abutting up to existing home developments seem to not cause as many problems, so.
Where would you put it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of land in St. Charles County, but.
Yeah, but you got to have it close to residential in order to make it work. That's why they're doing it. I mean, that's why they do it. So, yeah, that's my comment on that. Okay, any other comments? Need a motion, please.
So moved.
Mr. Ellis? Was that Mr. Griffin?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Clary?
No?
Mr. Leonard?
No.
Mr. Fromm votes yes. Mr. Kuhn?
No.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Klinghammer?
No.
Mr. Griffin?
No.
Mr. McBride?
No.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
So that's 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, this still goes before the county council on the July 11th or July 10th, and they can overrule this commission. So you got to go back then. They're going to have an opportunity to present. You guys need to do the same thing. Okay? Thank you. Wow, 3 more. Yeah. Do you guys need a facility break at all? You just want to power through? Okay. You want to go ahead and bring up the next conditional use request, please? Our next application is CUP 17-10, conditional use permit request. The owners are Michael Kamen, and Karen, what is it?
Kahneman.
Kahneman. Use requested a facility for weddings, wedding receptions, and other public assemblies and rural recreational activity. The property zoning is A Agricultural District. Area is 16.89 acres. Location is on the southwest corner of the intersection of Terry Court and Terry Road, and it's in Council District 2. Another wedding. Chapel, that's great. Go ahead. There's going to be an awful lot of weddings out here. That's all I got to say. Yeah, so go ahead.
Do you need us to?
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And your name and address for the record?
Michael Kahneman, 17410 Country Lake Estates Ridge, Chesterfield, Missouri.
Karen Kahneman, 17410 Country Lake Estates Ridge, Chesterfield, Missouri.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Okay, so this all started, my wife, after she retired from nursing, raised our kids, started a second career, becoming a horticulturist, did a lot of great work at her house, volunteered, several greenhouses, other things, et cetera. And she came home one day and said, I want to get into agricultural, build a sustainable farm, and see what we could do. So we shopped around for a couple of years for a farm, and we stumbled across the property at 245 Terry Road, which had 8 to 10 feet of weeds covered everywhere, poison ivy, just, it was kind of a mess. There's a divorced couple there, and the house was kind of falling apart. And we decided to jump in and see if we could resurrect that farm and make something into it. What we learned is farming is a very expensive proposition. You don't make a lot of money selling 20 eggs a day or vegetables or whatever, but we're going to try to build our CSA there, but we started looking at other forms of revenue. And we had a lot of people that showed up and said, could we use your property? I mean, you go to this business model. I was not really that knowledgeable of it, but they're like, no, we just want to use your property. If we pay you money, can we use it for a wedding? And we're like, no, I don't know. But we've had a lot of people do that. And so we started exploring the concept of what could we do. The house had asbestos. We tore that down. The barn has asbestos. That's now been torn down. We built the veggie garden. We built some fire pits. And, you know, we're selling, you know, agricultural products on the front in our veggie stand. So we really got into this idea. We've met with the county team over here, and they kind of gave us the requirements, what it would do. Mathematically, to make the farm cash flow, I would have said we probably wanted something that was going to do 200, 250 people weddings. But we found out that if you have a property that big indoors, you're going to need sprinklers. We don't have access to water. We've looked at trying to get access to the property, but we're a half mile through rock or a mile through the Katy Trail, and so we kind of gave up that effort of bringing water to the farm. And so we decided to design a building, a barn that could have 99 people inside of it, including the employees. There'd still be some other people outside that can walk around the property. I mean, the people want to see the property and what we're doing in the sustainable farm, not just have a wedding there. So it's really the property that people are attracted to, not just a barn. And so we put our proposal together, and you know, we're proposing to make substantial improvements to the property.
You're going to spend some money.
A lot of money.
Yep. Okay. Any questions for the applicant? No, did I
just wondered
ask
if
staff for
I've driven up
recommendations?
Terry Road
Did I miss a staff recommendation?
hundreds and hundreds of times, either coming up or coming down. It's a sharp turn there. I don't think what I brought up with traffic at the other place down 94, visibility at Terry and 94, I think there isn't any problem because visibility both ways. Another thing. Have you had any contact with residents that, you know, come in the back way on Terry Road and that, I don't know.
Well, I think originally, like, all the areas around us are kind of vacant farms, right? And when we originally found out you had to have, if you wanted to be the 40-acre scenario, right, I asked to buy everybody's property around me, and nobody really wanted to buy the property or sell the property.
That's the back entrance to, was it Augusta Shores subdivision? Yeah.
Yes, that's a little bit further down Terry Road.
Yeah, then it comes out on Terry.
I don't know if anybody wrote letters. They seem to be more supportive of everything we've been doing.
Yeah.
They're very frequent users and buyers of our materials.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I did go a little bit out of order. I think I'm getting a little tired myself, and I did not ask for staff recommendations on this, so, and of course, no one up here kicked me to tell me to do it, so we're going to ask for the staff recommendations at this time.
Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you.
The only thing that we did note while we were on site, the Highway Department will require a new entrance so that they can have ingress and egress, making a right turn onto Terry Road. Right now, I think they have a problem with the driveway. It's angled, but they will be asked to improve that. Their site, the proposed square footage of the barn is 2,584 square feet. And again, he already mentioned the 100 or less people because of the sprinkling system requirement. There is a lot of with the adjacent properties. It is again, no landscaping plan is required, but there is a lot of trees in the area, and again, this would be an indoor facility with the music and everything, and the food, the service indoors. Weddings, though, would be the rural recreational activity they're speaking of, and they do have some sites on the farm that that I think I included a picture on in the packet. The conditions would be no more than 99 guests allowed, site plan requirement, no events between the hours of 12 a.m. and 8 a.m. The other two standard conditions until all conditions are met and must be in place within 2 years, otherwise become null and void. And I don't know if you want to add the other condition on that.
Probably.
We did not receive any letters in opposition or support.
Currently, under these recommendations, there's no requirement that everything be indoors.
Yeah.
Well, the definition of the indoor facility, the definition of the facility for events is an indoor facility.
I gotcha. So this is different than,
Correct.
okay.
I have a couple questions. We've asked the other two weddings. Are you going to be supplying the liquor and food, or are you outside catering? Who's going to
Outside catering.
Outside catering?
You build a network of the caterers, the flower people, well, you might do
Preferred vendors.
all the preferred vendors, and you have a network that you kind of work and let the bridegroom pick who they want to work with.
Okay, any other questions? I think we got both of those out of the way, staff recommendations and the applicant, so.
Can I just ask one clarifying question, just
Sure.
to make sure I understood? I mean, the way the barn is, it's got a couple big barn doors. People will, if the weather's nice in the spring or winter, people will expect those doors to be open, that they can go out, they can mingle, they can, enjoy.
Yeah, the event
property.
has to be indoors,
Right,
though.
right.
People are
Right,
gonna
the
go
table, the
outside.
food, and all that, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You can't set up outside and have a band and all that.
Okay.
That's all that is. I gotta stop anybody from going outside.
Okay.
Sorry, you're in here, you gotta stay.
But our own personal, if we have our own party, can we have an acoustic guitar outside?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah, you can go ahead and do that, as long as I'm there.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna go ahead and open up to the public. Is there anybody in the room that wants to speak on this? Come on up. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record?
My name is Teresa Waddington. I live at 4521 Killdeer Drive, Augusta, Missouri.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I can't say enough nice things about these people. They have embraced the neighborhood. Karen works nonstop every day to cultivate the area, cultivate the acreage that they have. And they have amazing radishes and other produce. And I live in Augusta Shores, and for the last couple of years, they have held an open house, and they have embraced the neighborhood, and they have just made themselves very, very welcome.
Thank you. That's a good way to present right there, just so you know. Anybody else in the room wants to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close the public portion of it. You don't need to come back up. There's no concerns on it. So we'll bring it back to the commission. Is there any discussion on this?
I think it's a good thing for the area.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Approval is submitted.
Mr. Clingham?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You better do the formality of the motion for that new condition 6.
I don't think we needed to add it, did we?
Yeah.
Ellie? Because this is different.
Is this one required to be indoors, Ellie?
Well, they all are required to be indoors, the reception, the music, the food. It's an
Already.
indoor facility
All right, that's already included. I guess I didn't understand
in the
that when I made
definition.
it.
The rural recreational activity is to actually hold the wedding ceremony outside.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
that's
so we
already,
really don't
that's
need
already
it. Yeah, we said
within
we don't.
ours, then we don't need to make it.
I wish we'd have
So
known.
I'll make a motion.
We already have a motion that Mr. Klinghammer, so I need a second from you to approve this application.
Second.
Mr. Griffin. Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm votes yes. Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Klinghammer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
9-0. Thank you. Our next one is preliminary plat 17-06. Applicant is Lewis Bade Incorporated. Owners are James W. Kohler and Wanda K. Kohler. Property zoning RR, single-family residential district, 3-acre minimum lot size. The area is 117.25 acres. The number of lots is 30. Location on the southwest corner of the interstate of Highway D and Benny Road, and is in Council District 2. Staff, is there anything on there, or do we just bring them up?
As, if you remember, this was rezoned last year from A, agricultural, to RR.
Right.
3-acre minimum lot size. Staff has reviewed the site, or the preliminary plat. The only comment that is still waiting is we do need addressing and the letter of street name approval. Otherwise, staff has approved the review.
Okay, thank you. And the applicant, want to raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name and address for the record?
For the record, my name is Bart Corman, B-A-R-T-K-O-R-M-A-N, with Lewis and Beatty Incorporated, surveyors and engineers, and our address is 101 East Walton, Warrenton, Missouri.
Go ahead, Bart.
Thank you. Bring to you today a preliminary plat, very similar to the concept plan that we presented when the rezoning occurred last year. We've met a lot of comments. We've put the right-of-way dedication in along Highway D and along Callaway Fork Road. Pretty simple at that. The addressing did come in today from Debbie Fan, and so I will forward that on. But it did come in today before the 24-hour notice, so that's out there, but it has been taken care of. So, and I have Michael Kohler here with Kohler Development to answer any other questions that you may have.
Okay. Any question, Bart?
Entrance is down around that sharp turn, just the one entrance, ingress and egress, is that?
Yeah, that's one entrance. That's right at the top of the hill. So that's the best location there that we can have. And so the curve going to the south is enough distance, and then going to the north, obviously you can see down the hill and back up.
But the ingress and egress is down the hill, correct?
The ingress of Blue Sky Drive there is at the top of the hill.
Okay.
Now, Bart, you may have said, but is this been approved by MoDOT already?
Yeah, I've got.
You're going to need to take that microphone with you if you're going to come out front. Just pull it off of there. There you go. It's on.
Okay. Yeah, we've submitted to MoDOT, and they've commented approvals, but not like an official permit yet, and we relayed that on to the staff. But the entrance is here. Right now, across the street where we will do a future phase, there's a house here, and their driveway's right there, and this is just slightly south of those driveways.
Did MoDOT have any special requirements for the egress and ingress into the subdivision there?
No, it's full access.
Any other questions, Bart? Thank you. We're going to go ahead and open this up to the public. If there's anybody in the room that wants to speak on this matter, they can come up now and do that. Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and close this public portion and bring it back before this commission. Any discussion on this or comments, or if none, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ellis, Mr. Klinghammer, thank you. Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Klinghammer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
And Mr. Fromm votes yes. 9-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Our next applicant is a CUP conditional use permit, 17-05. The owner is John J. Shillington Jr. and Jacqueline R. Shillington. Applicant is Defiance Wine Company, LLC. Use requested, private club for wine education and wine experience. Property zoned A agricultural district and floodway fringe and floodway overlay district. The area is 14.25 acres. The location is on the south side of Defiance Road, approximately 1,800 feet south of Highway F. It's in Council District 2. And staff, I think.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Because of some historical circumstances, the county councilor's office today decided to avoid any appearance of impropriety in our dealing with this particular application. It would be best if I recused myself, and Bob Poink will answer any questions that the commission may have.
Okay. Do we have to kick you out, too?
I wish you would.
All right, well, let's go ahead and do staff recommendations. Thanks, Bob.
If you could please put up there a photograph. Thank you. Appreciate it. Like some other cases we've heard tonight, this property is zoned A agricultural district. And next door to it, there's an existing winery. It's been operating for many years under a conditional use permit, Chandler Hill Winery. Now, this property is not connected with Chandler Hill. It's a separate proposal. The subject property, you'll see it's highlighted in white, this white line on the map. And in the middle, you'll see a blue dot. There's a house there that and a driveway leading to it that's proposed to be used for a private club. And you'll see the definition of private club that's in our zoning regulations. It's actually in your staff report. Essentially, what is the proposal here is to have a closed membership, and members would come for events. And the membership, it would be up to 50 people. So at any one event, you might have, say, don't know exactly, but maybe about 20 people attending an event. The events they're talking about would be, you might call it a wine club, wine experience, education. That's really the proposal. And so in terms of uses, the master plan recommends agricultural tourism uses. And I would say that this fits well in with that vision for the area. In that regard, it definitely fits with the vision for future use. Also, I would say it's a low impact use because we're talking about a limited membership, limited number of cars and people. The one issue that's been brought to us that you will know about in reading in the staff report is the question of access hasn't quite been answered yet, and it's a little premature because at the site plan stage we'll resolve exactly what that means. But right now there's a driveway that goes up to this house that's, I'm not sure, some places 8 feet, 10 feet, et cetera. There's going to have to be access that meets the minimum access requirements in the International Fire Code and then also the Augusta Fire District. What that means exactly is, again, we'll have to answer that. We'll have to let those groups, I think, answer what that means exactly. And regardless of what we do here tonight, it's going to have to meet those standards. So when you review the criteria for conditional use permits, it's outlined in your memo, and staff is recommending a finding that it does meet the conditions of for granting of conditional use permits with certain conditions, certain proposed conditions. And those conditions are again outlined in your memorandum. Let's see here. And they are essentially site plan, substantially complying with the concept plan, has to be approved by the county. Access must be accomplished by a fire apparatus access road. Right now, this says brought up to the standards of St. Charles County and the Augusta Fire District. You might want to just say, actually, if you would permit me to recommend this, instead of saying brought up to the standards, you might say meeting the standards of the St. Charles County and Augusta Fire District codes. Number 3, the site must meet the County Health and Environment Department regulations. Membership will be limited to 50 members, no more than 20 members at any one gathering. All activity on the site, except the entrance drive, shall be at least 200 feet from all property boundaries. No conditional use shall be active until all conditions of the approval have been met. And then the last proposed condition is essentially if it's not in place within 2 years, it becomes null and void. The conditional use permit would.
Any questions of staff on this?
Yeah, I noticed that the property does abut Defiance Road. Would there be any reason that they legally couldn't have access off Defiance Road?
It's conceivable that access could be taken off Defiance Road. I think there's some challenges in terms of the slope, and there's I don't know if I'd call it a creek, but there's crossing definitely. There's a little bit of a floodway down there, and then there's a curve. I still think there probably could be sight distance at that location from Defiance Road. So I think technically yes, but there are some challenges to doing so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, staff? Okay. Seeing none, let's go ahead and bring the applicant up. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
Drew Weber with Hamilton Weber Law Firm, 200 North 3rd Street, St. Charles, Missouri.
Go ahead, Drew.
All right. Good evening, members of the commission. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. I am representing the Defiance Wine Company, which is the applicant for this conditional use permit. And as staff said, sorry, how do I click? Just like that. All right. As staff said, the proposed use here is a private wine club. You can see on, this is a conceptual site plan. There's a cabin on this property, which you can see in the lower left-hand corner on your screen. And that cabin is where the wine club events will be held. And it's also shown in yellow on the site plan. And it's somewhat in the center of the property. And then you can see the access road that's been talked about up to the cabin. And then this is another part of the site plan, which is kind of panned out a little bit. And you can see the surrounding properties in Defiance Road. And I'd like to address briefly that there is no legal prohibition, I guess, that we know of on connecting to Defiance Road, but there are extreme practical difficulties due to the slope. And I don't have an elevation map here, but there's extreme changes in elevation and, like staff said, a creek or a drainage ditch area. But so the use here is a private club, which is a conditional use, and you have the definition in the staff packet. But a private club is a building or portion of a building intended to be used as a center of informational association for a selective membership not open to the general public. Well, that's exactly what's happening here. This private club will be a maximum of 50 members with no more than 20 members at any event. And in reality, there's probably going to be less members than that at most events. The members will pay membership fees just like a normal membership club. It will not be open to the general public. Only members will be allowed to schedule events at the property, and there's likely only to be a couple events per week. Here are some pictures of the actual cabin, some up-close pictures to give you a sense of the intimate nature of the cabin, and it really is a low-intensity use here. Here's the exterior deck area, and then here's another picture of the deck, and then on the right-hand side you see the interior area. And then again, here's more of the interior rooms of the cabin. The cabin may look old, but it's only about 30 years old. But there's old timbers and things like that used to get the rustic look to fit in the area. But as you can see, I mean, there's no way you could get more than 20 people comfortably. This is a very intimate, tight location, and it really is meant to be a true private club. As staff said, the County 2025 Future Land Use Plan does call for agricultural tourism type uses in this area, and this is the perfect fit for the area. This is a true agricultural tourism type use. And so because of the intimacy of the cabin, the appropriateness of a wine club in this area, we request that the commission make a recommendation to the county council to grant this conditional use permit. Now, I'd like to spend a couple more minutes talking about this access road issues. As staff said, the width and the nature of the access road will really appropriately be addressed at the improvement plan stage, but since at the May Planning and Zoning Commission meeting there were some questions raised about the access and some misinformation, I'd like to clarify some of that. So here's the aerial view. And the portion of the access road at issue is on the right-hand side of your screen, adjacent to the pond there. As you can see, it's a very straight road. It's about 350 or 400 feet alongside the lake, and there's no trees, there's no change in elevation, there's no buildings. When you are at one end of the road, you can see directly to the other end. And here's pictures of the road taken from both ends. Again, as you can see, it's a straight shot, and there's nothing in your way, nothing that will block your view of any oncoming traffic. And there's also, you know, some of the reports say the road's 8 feet wide. I mean, I measured the gravel portion, and in a couple spots, and it's gravel, so it's not the same width the whole way. But the gravel portion is 10 feet to 11 feet in the couple spots that I measured it. And then there is more than just a gravel portion. There's a couple feet of grass on either side too. And you can see it's actually mowed here, the area kind of next to the lake. So we're not talking about an 8-foot road with these extreme precipices on either side. I mean, you've got 10 or 11 feet of gravel, then a couple more feet of grass on either side. So really, I mean, the whole length is maybe 12 to 14 feet. And this road has been around since the mid-'80s. The oldest picture we have is from 1995, but as you can see, I mean, the road hasn't moved since then. And then in 2010, the road was extended on the Chandler Hill property up to a shed at which certain vehicles and tractors are stored, and the only way to access that shed is across this road. And then a couple weeks ago, here's a picture looking up the road towards Chandler Hill, and you can see that there's a few dozen cars parked there. This is an employee parking area on the Chandler Hill property, and the only way for the employees to get in that parking area is to cross this road as well. So this road has been used, I mean, it's been used for 30 years by an assortment of vehicles. There's sewage trucks if there's an issue with the septic tanks on the properties. I mean, to lay the road, gravel trucks had to get out there. There's a vine tractor that's been stored on that cabin, or shed rather, that's off this road. And then obviously Chandler Hill's employees. There's been 5K races that have started on this road with 2,300 people running across that road. So we think the road is adequate, and if there are any improvements that need to be made, it'll be addressed at the site plan stage. And so we're fine with the staff's condition that the access road must meet the fire code requirements, because that has to happen anyways. So we would comply with those requirements anyways. And we have been in discussions with the Augusta Fire Department and then with the county to address these issues. So, in conclusion, I think it's clear that this private wine club is appropriate in this area. It's an agricultural tourism type use. The local community supports this use, and even the Defiance Merchants Association, the Historic Missouri Wine Country, the executive director of the Missouri Wine and Grape Board have all written letters that you have in front of you supporting this. Improvements to the access road will be addressed at the appropriate stages with the fire department and county building officials. And then this use is really a unique experience in St. Charles County. It's appropriate in the wine country, and it'll provide people with just a certain extra level of wine experience that you can't really get anywhere else. So that That is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If there's kind of specific engineering questions, we have Paul Boyer here, who's the engineer for the applicant, who may be able to better answer those than me.
Yeah, I have a few questions. The membership, is that a license? What type of membership are people purchasing?
Rich people membership.
I mean, it's really, well, it's really kind of like if you were a member of Bogey Hills or something, right? So there's a membership payment level, and when at your certain level, and I think there's only one level here, but you get certain membership benefits. And in this case, you get the right to have wine tastings or other private events on the property.
So each one of these 50 members could theoretically have their own parties, correct?
Correct. But it's, and you say parties, I want to clarify
Okay,
that.
what?
I mean, well, the
Sorry,
focus.
I'm not your
that's all
target
right.
market.
The focus is on like wine tasting type events. So it's not like these people are going to have big weddings. I mean, it's really a wine tasting type experience.
So you can have 50 members or 50 memberships?
50 members.
So my wife and I would count as two.
Well,
Not the way you drink.
You need two memberships.
yes. Yeah, just 50
You should talk.
people.
And then as a member, I can bring up to 19, if I have my own function, up to 19 guests.
Well, you're not really having your own functions, though. I mean, the applicant is providing the wine tasting experience. And so, yes, you could bring non-member guests.
And they're agreeing to the maximum capacity at any one time is going to be 20?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is the road you're referring to, is that an easement across, who actually owns the property that the easement sits on?
Chandler Hill Winery, or Chandler Hill Holdings is the entity.
Okay.
And so they own the underlying fee, and then there is a recorded easement benefiting the cabin property.
So that would be appropriate for them to be using that, putting that other driveway for their employees?
Yeah, they absolutely have the right to
Okay,
use it.
okay.
My intent is to show that this road has been used for decades
Okay.
by all sorts of types of vehicles and all sorts of types of people.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We're going to go ahead and open up to the public. If there's anybody in here that wants to speak on this, please come forward.
Hi, I do.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
My name is Christine Camato. I live at 460 Matts Way, Defiance, Missouri, 63341. Until just 4 weeks ago, I also was a business owner just 1 mile from the property in question. I'm here to offer my support as the owner of Historic Missouri Wine Country, as the St. Charles County representative for the wine country on the St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau, and also as secretary of the Defiance Merchants Association. Some of you know we've been working really hard to try and get tourism out to this agritourism district that is part of the master plan. As such, the county has earmarked tourism dollars that we are utilizing through the holding person of that, which is the St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau. Through that, local leaders have really, really tried to get appropriate businesses out in our region that fit that agritourism being. And we really believe this is something that would benefit our area. I would like to say I've been at Chandler Hill Vineyards. I've been at the cabin in question. I think they both are very beneficial to our area. But other than that, I would like to say the local community really supports this application, and I hope you'll give it your every consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Anybody else in the room? Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kim Busserman, 3805 Salvation Road, Florissant, Missouri. A little background, I was a 7-year wine club member for Chandler Hill, been at the cabin several times. I'm not rich, but I'd like to have the first membership to this, so Chuck put me down. Just a little note, I'm a retired firefighter and have went to several events at the time for Chandler Hill at the cabin. One of them, I had an old fire truck that we kind of took the people around afterwards. I've got a picture of it. Anybody like to see it? It's
You can put it right on that screen if you want to.
Okay.
I think they just
No,
turn it up.
turn it up.
There you go. They might be able to put it, we'll see.
Okay.
Can you try that in the back, bringing it up on the overhead? There you go. Okay, we got it. All right.
It's an old fire truck. Let me just show you real quick.
It's okay, it's okay.
We got it.
We got it. Go.
It's rated at 10,500 pounds. I only had one glass of wine while I was driving it, honestly, because my wife was there. But we were in the cabin, we grilled, we had wine tastings. That's what the kind of concept is. We took people back and forth over that access road. There was no problems. It's at least 10 foot wide. You can see the truck. It's a regular sized fire truck. It's about a 61 fire truck. There's no hose in the back. We had people back there. It was a little hooping and hollering at the time, but it was still fun. In my professional, estimation, there's no problems going to be with the Augusta Fire Department having a truck if it goes back there. If I'm there, fire will be out before the truck gets there. So just let you know.
Cool. Thank you.
Don't forget your phone.
Anybody else in the room wants to speak on this matter? Please come forward. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
Lynn Gray, 705 Brook Manor Court, Lake St. Louis.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I'm a former employee of Chandler Hill. I was part of the management team there for 8 years. I've probably driven over that road well over 1,000 times. Our staff did all park down there, and I believe continues to, based on those pictures. Never once have we had any kind of commercial vehicle have a problem getting over that road, whereas many times we have had commercial vehicles having a hard time getting up the driveway. And in a matter of certain times, we've even had them choose to go over the road and up the back end to make a delivery as opposed to going up the road, the driveway to Chandler Hill. Sure. There's just never been any kind of incident. Chandler Hill is being naive if they think that their customers are not driving over that road now as it is, because I myself have gone many times and had to go over when I've seen cars that I knew didn't belong over there drive, and I had to, get out of here. The Shillingtons have put up a fence once you cross that easement to keep the customers from Chandler Hill from going over there and snooping, just, looky-loos or whatever. And there's a reason for that, because people are driving over that road every day. So if there is a concern for it, it shouldn't be there, because it's been going on for the last 9 years.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Please come forward. I'm going to close it down for public comment. Come on up. Yeah, I'm going to assume you're under oath from the last one, so.
Okay, no, I'm not just hanging out here.
Yeah.
No, my husband and I, but I'm here by myself, I'm here to support the conditional use permit, and we have been members of Chandler Hill Winery, and we have been at the cabin, and we've attended events at this location in the past with no problem, and the use of headlights on a vehicle at night is sufficient, and if you're at night, a gravel road is sufficient to be able to see, and I am in support of this endeavor.
And it's Tracy,
any
right?
Unique.
You're Tracy?
Teresa.
Teresa, okay.
And for this unique opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And your name and address for the record?
My name is Steve Cohn. My address is 8000 Maryland, Suite 1550, Clayton, Missouri.
Okay.
And I'm an attorney, and I represent Chandler Hill Holdings, which is the owner of the property immediately adjacent to the proposed the proposed private wine club. So I want to back up for a second. I was here about a month ago, and this was tabled, and I mentioned some of my concerns. I've written a couple of letters for the record, and I need to describe exactly what this site really does look like, because you cannot do it justice by looking at aerial photographs.
I think that possibly everybody sitting up here has probably been there,
Okay?
if I'm not mistaken. Is that not the case, gentlemen?
I've been there.
Okay, so go. But
Well, I would suppose that you probably have not driven this gravel road. First of all, there is a sign right at the front that says that the public is not permitted. So there is a specific sign that prohibits people from going down there, specifically patrons of Chandler Hill Vineyards. So to say that customers go through there on a daily basis, I'm certainly not there on a daily basis. There may be somebody here that can speak to that, but I seriously doubt if that is the case.
So are you concerned that people are going to use that go to Chandler Hill?
No. Here's what I'm concerned about. This road is on my client's property.
Mm-hmm.
It is an easement. It's an easement on paper that is wide enough to accommodate this particular use. But on the ground, and I beg to differ with some of the people that have talked about this before, but I know for sure that there are places on this road that are no wider than 8 feet wide. And there's no shoulder. And when you say that there's grass on the side, it drops precipitously on one side directly into a body of water. It drops just as precipitously into a ravine on the other side. So for people that are familiar with this road and go very slowly, certainly it is navigable. But for people that are not familiar with this road, it is extraordinarily dangerous.
So again, I'm not sure, why are you concerned about that? Are you worried that Chandler Hill employees or someone that's going to Chandler Hill is going to use that road? Or go back there next to that lake?
Well, I'm concerned about it for several reasons. I mean, first of all, one of the conditions for obtaining the special use permit is to consider the public safety.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're talking about potentially 50 private club members, all of whom can invite their friends and family. So that expands exponentially to a number of people that are not familiar with this property.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, this is my client's property. And it would be catastrophic for everybody if somebody had a serious accident on this thing. And it doesn't take a lot of imagination to envision that happening. And let's be honest, the purpose of this venture is for people to go there and consume alcohol. Nothing wrong with that. I think we can all agree to that. But to be in a situation where potentially at night, in the dark, unlit, people are driving back, potentially other people are driving directly in the opposite direction, there's no possibility that two cars can pass at the same time on this roadway. People would literally be stuck in the middle, would be required to reverse their automobiles, which would be extremely difficult if you're not familiar with this property.
So Steve, I'm going to ask you to kind of, I understand you got a real problem with it. I get it now, but.
I got a quick question for him, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
If I understand correctly, Chandler Hill requires, or at different times requires their employees to drive down this road and park there, and presumably they have to leave after dark if there's an event or something going on.
That is correct.
So I'm concerned, my question then is, does the Chandler Hill take people and show them where they need to go, or we're saying that at one hand, you don't want strangers driving on it, and on the other hand, you're directing your employees to drive on the same road. So I see a little conflict there. Can you help me on that?
Please,
Yeah,
please.
certainly.
I'm sorry, you need to be respectful to the guy we're asking questions of. Thank you.
The employees are trained before they start working at Chandler Hill.
They're trained on how to drive on this road.
They are trained about the fact that the road is a very dangerous road. You are required to go very slow and carefully on this road. In the past, employees have drank alcohol after work. They are no longer permitted to do that. It's strictly prohibited. Employees can't drink at work and they can't drink after work. So the employees who are using that road on the weekends are very familiar with it, and and frankly, it's their private property. I mean, if they want people to walk on a tightrope to get to their front door, they have the right to do that.
Okay.
So if they were to make improvements and make this road 2 lanes, would you be in favor of it?
I wouldn't be in favor of it, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Okay, all right.
Or reflectors?
That's a whole different story.
Yeah, just
all right.
Whatever level of improvement.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask the applicant to come back up and try to answer it. Sir?
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
There is an engineer that's performed a study, and I'd like for him to address.
Oh, yeah, so
Commission.
I thought you were done. Sorry. Let's go ahead and let's bring him up. You're going to do public comments still. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
David Bramar, 1002 400 Dollar Street Road. I'll make it real brief because you all look tired. You probably read my report. And it starts out telling what I did at the site visit. I made 11 different points. I would probably disagree with Mr. Weber a little bit on the width of the road. It doesn't matter if that road is 24 foot wide at some point. The fact it's 8 foot in a lot of places, and it's not that wide anyway. In my review, we stated several sources that highway engineers use for when there's public access. And when you have 50 memberships and each one can bring more members, then this roadway needs to be designed basically as your code called for it. In my report, I identify some wording and definitions. And at the completion of that, I went through your own county code, and basically I got the same information your staff did involving the International Fire Code and the reason for it. So in some respects, my report just enhances and agrees with staff that my report in no way takes issue with the use of the property, only the access road and the safety to it. So when I heard that the staff report recommended the required road according to the International Fire Code, yeah, I'm pleased that our work and efforts support what they're recommending.
So you're saying it needs to be improved?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for David? All right, seeing none. Any other person in the room wants to speak on this matter? I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion of it and ask the applicant to come up, back up. And did you say you had an engineer too? Do we want to do competing engineers?
Well, we did have an engineer here. I guess all that I think needs to be said about the traffic study type questions is those are questions that will be answered at the improvement plan stage. You know, I looked at some of the code sections that CBB cited in their report, and some of those apply to public roads. And I mean, that's just a discussion that'll have to happen at the improvement plan stage. So, I mean, that's not really pertinent right now, frankly. Now, with regard to becoming...
I would suggest that I would ask the question of, are they planning to do something about the lake and the road? I mean, not the lake, because that road runs right next to that lake.
Right.
How are you going to keep people from falling into it?
Well, in over 30 years of the road's existence, we don't know of one single incident any kind of accident or incident at all involving that road. Second, we have been in discussions with the Augusta Fire Department and talked with the county a little bit just about which of these code standards apply and what is exactly required. And whatever is required by the ordinances we'll certainly comply with. That just hasn't really been sorted out yet.
Okay.
And there was a question about, Chandler Hill employees are familiar with the road, but the members won't be. I mean, these are private club members. They'll be visiting the property a lot. If familiarity with the road is a concern, well, that's going to solve itself quickly after they attend a few events. And there is one more slide that I'd like to show.
Well, there was also a question of hours of operation. It's one of the concerns too.
Right. So, I mean, a wine tasting could be at any time. So it's not like this would be solely weekend evening event. These events could be at any time of the day. So it really just depends on when you want an event. I mean, Craig, if you prefer to drink at 4 PM and you're a member, then you could have.
I prefer to drink at 4.
But I mean, that's kind of the point,
I'm
too.
usually at work, though.
That gets in the way.
Yeah.
But so they could be at any time of day. And, so if there's 20 members, a lot of them are couples, you got 10 cars, everyone's arriving at the same time, everyone's leaving at the same time. There aren't people going crisscross. You're going to the same 2-hour wine tasting that starts at 6 o'clock and leaving at 8 or whatever.
And can they spend the night there?
No.
Okay.
No.
Could you have events back to back? Could you have one that goes from 6 to 8 and one 8 to 10?
Yeah, feasibly. I mean, I'd imagine there'd be a little more space you could clean up, right, and do things like that. But at this point, there aren't any set hours or set time frames. I mean, I'm sure they'd love it if the business got good enough to where they had multiple events where they had to worry about that issue. But at this point, that kind of conflict isn't anticipated.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant on this? I think we've worn you guys out. Okay, well, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to bring it back before this commission. Any discussion on this?
Yeah, I would, like many of the people mentioned here, I've went to Channel Hill, both events there, and this is so low impact, so low traffic, and it's blown out of proportion. There's probably one day at Channel Hill, traffic will be what they have an entire year. You felt falling in the lake, trust me, nobody's ever fallen in that lake. And they have a lot of people from Channel Hill wandering around, weddings and so forth and so on. So I know the area. I think it's a good, as staff recommends, I think the road issue is going to be handled at the planning stages, so I'm totally in favor of it. I think it's good for St. Charles County.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll
Mr.
make
Griffin.
a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Kleehammer. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Klinghammer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Abstain.
Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Fromm votes yes, and Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
That's 8-0-1. That passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Motion for adjournment.
I think we need to pass the minutes first. I think.
I have one other thing.
But you did it before I got here.
Let's do the minutes real quick first. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Now, what'd you have,
One other,
folks?
Robert?
I'm sorry. Hey, folks. Hey, folks, could you be quiet? We're still conducting business up here. Sorry. Go ahead.
Robert, I talked, and to all of us, when Jack Gamble was here and they were changing the audio-visual portions, I asked if we could have the same thing as the county council, that could be presented on these screens. I'm sitting here at an oblique angle. I've been doing this for 14 years. When we're down
Can't
below,
see it. Yeah.
you can't see it. And seeing the detail and color. I talked to the people in the back, and they said all they need is an approval from Mr. Meyer,
Okay.
and they can put the same thing that what you send us, on the website with a lot more color information. So if we could have it here, I think it would be beneficial for all of us, no matter where you're sitting, but you can see more detail.
It doesn't show up on council meetings here either, though.
They said you do. You get the whole agenda put up.
The agenda, yes.
But not pictures
But
and
not
stuff like
that.
that. Yeah.
Well, we don't want you to have it, but we want it.
Is that a motion?
I'd love to have it also, but I don't think the tech is there yet to do that.
Computers up there and 10 of you.
We can,
We asked
we
about
can,
that prior, and
we can share.
that's what we were told.
But it's just going to be the agenda.
The agenda, the paper stuff we can put up
Why could we
there.
not have it? The
I guess we could. I mean,
I asked them before the meeting, absolutely, positively, everything that,
You asked.
they'll do it. All they need is the okay from Mr. Meyer.
Okay. We'll look into it.
All right, Robert,
So I like
give
the
them
idea of
permission.
it, so we'll pursue that.
And then we won't have to mail packets out anymore.
Ah.
Right there, officially.
You know,
No, we still, yeah.
I don't know.
You still have to mail the packet so we can read it beforehand, but
you can actually read it online.
Yeah, but if you're on the site, when I go out on the site, you know, I'll go through the packet.
That's what I do. I read them online.
that's true.
He doesn't have a
Absolutely, yeah,
computer.
we don't get packets like this
Nice.
at the council.
I'm still using my abacus.
Well, I think that, Robert, you're going to look into that for us? Thank you. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
No.